Okay, welcome everyone to the September 19th, 2022 Select Board regular meeting. Is that in here? We're just getting some strange feedback. I will keep going while we get that figured out. Slowly drive me, there we go. This is Select Board Chair Josh Levine. I will be confirming that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mark Gold.
Here.
Dan Zwerko.
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Lynn Simmons.
Here.
Mike Barbieri.
Here.
This open meeting of Long Meadow Select Board is being conducted in person with a remote option available to the public consistent with Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. This meeting is convened in Zoom and convened in person and via Zoom webinar as posted on the agenda and town website identifying how the public may join. There is no chat or Q&A function. All of the materials for this meeting are available on the agenda posted on longmeadow.org. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. Each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. This meeting will feature a resident comment. For residents attending the meeting in person, please fill out the public comment form given upon arrival to the meeting. I will call on residents in the order in which the forms are received. For residents participating in the meeting via Zoom webinar format, members of the public are attendees. If a member of the public would like to speak during resident comment, please use the raise hand icon on the bottom of the screen. The meeting moderator will promote you to panelists, unmute you, and give you permission to speak. If you join the webinar by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute, unmute. Residents who wish to speak will identify their names and addresses only. Each individual is afforded 3 minutes for comments. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Okay, and this meeting is being recorded. If anyone else is using audio or video recording, you must ask our permission, and please identify yourself now. Okay, Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For our announcements, public forums on middle schools. The Long Meadow Public Schools have started a series of interactive and informational sessions for members of the general public to learn more about the facility-related needs of Glenbrook and Williams Middle Schools. The next round of public forums will be held on Wednesday, September 21st at 10 a.m. in the District Conference Room. Located at 535 Bliss Road, and again on Wednesday, October 12th at 1 p.m. at the Long Meadow Adult Center, 211 Maple Road. Community members interested in learning more about the facility needs of Glenbrook and Williams Middle Schools may review reports and presentations posted to the LPS website, and there's a link for those accessing the agenda online. Long Meadow Community Preservation Committee seeks new projects. The Long Meadow Community Preservation Commission has announced it is now accepting applications for project recommendations utilizing Community Preservation Act CPA funding. Applications are available at the town clerk's office or online by visiting www.longmeadow.org/civic-alerts. Applications are to be received at the town clerk's office no later than Tuesday, November 1st, 2022 for consideration and approval at the spring 2023 annual town meeting. Long Meadow Cultural Council seeks grant applications. The 2023 local cultural Council grant application cycle will be open September 1st, 2022 and runs through October 17th, 2022. Online applications are accepted for cultural projects and programs related to the arts, sciences, and humanities to include grants for operating support, ticket subsidies, field trips, pre-K through 12, artist residencies, public art, fellowships, site-specific projects, lectures, community events, programs, and other activities based on local priorities. For online grant applications and/or additional information, please go to www.mass-culture.org. Fall Special Town Meeting. The Fall Special Town Meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, October 22nd, 2022 at 7 p.m. in the Long Meadow High School Gymnasium. For additional information, please visit www.longmeadow.org/townmeeting. Next up on the agenda, we have school building committee appointments. All right, so we have 2 open terms, and we had 10 applicants. 2 did not interview. I'm looking at the appointment memo. George Case and Kurt Friedman did not interview, and I will note that we got correspondence this week, or at the bottom of the agenda, from Kurt listing his qualifications and his goals if he was to be appointed. And then also we have on the agenda select board choices for the school building committee. So as we discussed last week, we had each member of the select board who was present for the interviews gave 2 choices, and they're noted here. And this is not binding. This is just after the interviews who we were thinking. So I voted for Kristen Russell and David McCrane. Mark voted for Kyle Lewis and David McCrane. Dan voted for Christopher Legendre and Douglas Lake. And Tom voted for George Case and Christopher Legendre. So we have David McCrane got 2, Kristen Russell 1, Kyle Lewis 1, Christopher Legendre 2, Douglas Lake, George Case each got 1. So I thought I would open up to discussion. If there's any thoughts or anyone else you're thinking of, if you want to discuss why you voted for who you did, I think now would be a good time. You want to go ahead, Mark?
Sure. Yeah, as you indicated, I voted for Kyle Lewis and Dave McCrane, and I primarily voted for them because of their background as project managers rather than as architects. I think the other people who were opted for, voted for, who were architects are clearly also well qualified, but the project has architects, and what we're looking for is somebody or people who would be good at managing projects. I think my past history working with the Long Meadow High School Building Committee showed that project management and being able to work with as a project manager has a lot of power and a lot of value to the town, and so that's why I voted for them. As I noted, we have a group of well-qualified candidates, so I'm not, I don't think we can make a mistake, but I was just looking for project managers as opposed to architects.
I'll go ahead. I voted for similar reasons. That's why I voted for Mr. McCrane. He seemed like a really well-qualified project manager and a licensed engineer. And then I did think it was useful to also have an architect on board. What Ms. Russell said about safety really resonated with me. As someone with kids in school, it's always something that's in my mind to have someone who's focused on safety, and being on a base and architect for the military, I thought that was a useful qualification. Dan?
Sure. Yeah, I would say that this was probably one of the most difficult decisions so far, just being on the board, because like the other member said, there's a lot of qualified folks that put their name in, which I really appreciate. I chose Chris Legendre. Really, one reason because of his experience with the planning board, and just knowing other contacts across town as well. I think it's really important. He has already built relationships. I've watched a lot of those meetings over the past couple of years, and I think he's done a good job. He does his homework. So I thought he'd be a good fit. Also, Douglas Lake, really what stuck out to me was he's already worked with a lot of middle school projects previously, and I thought that could be a great benefit to this committee. But again, a very difficult decision. I think anyone would be very qualified to serve, and I really appreciate everyone kind of stepping up.
Yeah, this was an incredibly tough decision. I thought an incredible crop of people, and we were lucky to have this difficult decision. Mark?
I was going to put you on the spot and ask you how we tend to cut this down, but what I was going to say is one of the things, I'm a firm believer in ranked choice voting, whether it's for this or something else, and I think one of the things we might be able to do is if we rank them 1 through 5 or whatever we want to do, we're going to find out that I think the people who have the lowest total count, you know, either a 1-1 and 2 2s or whatever, probably going to be the people that look the best. That's what I was hoping that we would do as part of this original request, so that we'd find out, you know, gee, you know, Dan thought Chris Legadre was number 1. He would have been my number 3 person or whatever it is, and we could have seen that. But at this point, it's
Well, we have to vote tonight, so. Yeah.
right. But I mean, we could go do that now if we want. I mean, otherwise, we're just going to be saying, I got my 2, you got your 2, and Dan's got his 2. I mean, and unfortunately, Tom's not here, and he also had his 2. So.
Well, based on where we are, if these are how we would vote now, given my proclivity for having an architect on as well as review plans, I would be happy to vote for Chris as well. And then that gives us 2 candidates. If otherwise, this is how we're voting. This is how you would vote?
Yeah.
Okay. Mark, and you would stick with Kyle and David?
For the most part, sure. I mean, so you're saying the 2 candidates would who be David McCrane and Chris Legadre?
Correct.
And I don't think we're going to make a big mistake if we do that, but
No, I don't think so.
I think it's okay. That's fine. I mean, I don't have a better way to do it.
Yeah.
Actually, I did have a better way to do it, but we didn't do it that way, so we'll do it this way.
That would have been a great thought 2 weeks ago.
Well, that's why I asked how you wanted to do it, but be that as it may, I mean, if you want, I mean, if you want a motion, I'll make a motion that we nominate Christopher Legadre and Dave McCrane to be the select board's representatives to the school building committee.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? All right, unanimous? And thank you so much to everyone else who applied. I hope if spots do open up, I hope you will reapply. And as we mentioned last week, there are lots of, we're always looking for people on the committees. If people can help out on those, that would be fantastic. So thank you so much, and we really appreciate it, and look forward to getting this thing moving. Next on the agenda, we have board and committee appointments. And we do have the Cultural Council. We have one term for 2 people, right, Mike?
Yep.
Okay.
Trying to find that. All right.
And this is the first one of these that's come up for me, so how do we handle this?
Well, I'm trying to find that memo from Mike. and
I asked the same question.
Number 6.
Yeah, okay, I'll just open the new one up because I can't find the document. Oh, in the Cultural Council?
Right.
Yeah, I would tend to nominate the incumbent who's got experience in the Cultural Council, especially since the Cultural Council has been doing such a good job, and Caitlin's been participating and contributing in a positive manner. So that would be my take on this, unless anybody has any other changes.
I'm remembering Nicole, and I was happy to see her enthusiasm, and I hope she can, I agree with you, Mark. I hope Nicole can find another spot. As I said, there are plenty open. We appreciate her coming out, and there's always spots opening up, and I'm really glad to see more than one, or that we have too many people applying for Cultural Council. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, Mark,
I'll make a motion that we appoint Kayla McGee to the 3-year term expiring June 30th for the 2025 to the Board of Assessors, Patrick Gotchlick to a 3-year term expiring June 30th, 2025 for the Conservation Commission, and Caitlin Cronin to a 3-year term expiring June 30th, 2025 to the Cultural Council.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Unanimous. Resident comments.
All right, so we have Peter Zimmer and Paul Zimmer. They filled out the form. They could head on up.
Mike, can I still fill that form? form?
Yeah, or after they go.
Are we next for the chargers? Is that what we're discussing? Or?
Well, you can talk then, or you can talk now. It's up to you.
Well,
All
we
right.
wait till it comes up.
I'll call you when it comes up then.
Tom?
Good evening. Tom Shea, 81 Green Meadow Drive. I strongly encourage the board to vote in favor of the sewer rate recommendation to be presented by Lisa Oxon and Mark Gold. Full disclosure, if I calculate it right, my personal benefit is less than $70. The rate proposal is 55 units for 2 quarters, takes a very good step in more equitably charging for sewer rates. The proposed new sewer billing process better reflects the cost of the town providing the sewer service and the use of the customer. I thank Mark, Lisa, Lynn, and others who have worked on this. One board member at the last meeting said, "We have worked on this for 2 years. Let's try the 55 and see how it works for a year." I agree, but it's been 15 years. Tiered rates were mentioned, as was a rate study. Tiered rates have been reviewed in the past and rejected. There are numerous rate studies on the town website. Long Meadow does not have a water resource issue which tiered rates might address, and that's what they use in the eastern part of the state, where they have water resource problems. Our water supply at Cobble Mountain Reservoir is in the high 80s of capacity and considered normal by the Springfield Water and Sewer Commission. You'll discuss water usage restrictions later, and I think some of the proposal is very good and warranted. An infrastructure study is needed and is planned, and there are 3 fixed rates on our water bill currently that are designed to capture infrastructure costs and bonding costs. These should be reviewed for how they are calculated and what can be funded from these charges in conjunction with the infrastructure study. One board member mentioned they had not heard many concerns. A major reason is the implementation of quarterly billing last year after 15 years of various discussions. Quarterly billing was pursued by citizens and thankfully implemented by the town, and I appreciate the work that you did on that. Otherwise, as board members, your phones and emails would be full if the previous method of 6-month water and sewer bills in October was followed. In conclusion, rely on the experts and the research and the work they've done for 2 years and their recommendation. The successful quarterly billing was the predecessor to the new sewer rate proposal being considered. I encourage you to approve the rate structure as presented. I know usually don't ask for questions, but if you have any, feel free. I can give you the opinion of someone that's lived this for 2 years. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other, Mike?
Not that I see.
Okay. On to select board comments. I've gotten a couple emails and heard from people and seen signs about the proposed Amazon warehouse in East Long Meadow. There is a planning board hearing tomorrow for a site plan review. For anyone who doesn't live this like I do, site plan review, the planning board can put on reasonable constraints, but they have to be reasonable. And one of the things that will be an issue, I would imagine, is there's going to be a lot of trucks going through. There's going to be a lot of trucks going through our town as well. So the hearing tomorrow night, I don't know where in the process they are. If this is going, I don't know if they'll be voting, but if it's a way to make residents can make their voices heard, and I know that people want the town to explore if there's any recourse that we have, if we have any say in it. And that's something that I'm going to talk to Lynn about, and see if there's anything we can do. But did we get an abutters notice?
No.
We didn't, so I don't think we even needed to get one. So, but I just want everyone to know that is on our mind, it's on, and we're looking into it. But I don't know what recourse we have, if any. Anybody else? Morton?
Yeah, I just comment that today Lynn and I met with a group of individuals from Pure Act. They're the pension review group, is the chair of their board. I guess he's the vice chair or assistant chairman, and also their head counsel. We were talking about potentially what we're trying to do to impose or implement or get past some legislative action, and hopefully Pure Act, we can bring them into understanding what we're trying to do and get their support. So I just want to let you know that we had that meeting today.
Have we ever heard anything back on the insurance letter?
No.
Okay. As I assumed, but that's too bad. Okay, anything for you, Dan?
No, I'm good.
Oh, and finally, I just want to thank the organizers of the Long Meadow Pride Festival yesterday. I think you did a fantastic job. It was a great event for the town. I'm very happy to see the green used in that way. All right, town manager report, Lynn?
Thank you. So an update on the air handlers at the high school. The need for replacement of the north mechanical room air handler units at Long Meadow High School was previously identified, and we were originally approved in the FY22 capital plan at the annual town meeting in May 2021. The estimate for the air handler replacement at that time was $345,000. When the American Rescue Plan Act funding was distributed, we substituted ARPA funding for the capital funding at an increased cost of $375,000. That the quote had gone up. The project was put out to bid, and the most responsive bid was $718,000. The bid, to be able to move this project forward, we would have to use both capital funds and ARPA funds and some additional funding, which was not intended or publicly announced. So I'm using this opportunity in my manager's report to just give you an update on our intention to move forward with using both funds, and I'll go into a little more detail as to why. There is a 6-month lead time on the equipment, and the installation needs to be scheduled when school is not in session. So if we place the order now, we will receive it sometime over the winter, or it'll be ready for delivery over the winter, but we would not be able to install it until June. So we do want to move forward with this order. We did discuss putting this work off or rebidding it, but it creates a vulnerability in the school HVAC needs that we're not comfortable creating. So the recommendation is to use both funding sources plus some additional funds from a yet-to-be-determined source to order this equipment and plan for an early summer 2023 installation. And I'm repeating something that was brought up in your announcements, but I'll add a little bit more to it, and it's also a very important topic, so I want to make sure residents are aware. There's a middle school public forums taking place. We've had 2 so far. The public schools have been hosting this. It's an informational, interactive session for members of the public to come and learn more about the facility-related needs for Glenbrook and Williams Middle Schools. The next upcoming forum is Wednesday, September 21st at 10 a.m. here in this conference room. And after that, we have one scheduled for Wednesday, October 12th at 1 o'clock at the Long Meadow Adult Center. Community members also have the opportunity to view a panel discussion during a segment of the Superintendent's Corner that's being aired on Long Meadow Community TV. And the reason that these forums are taking place is there is a warrant article that is scheduled hopefully for the October 25th town meeting. We'll talk more about the warrant later tonight, but we will be seeking, that warrant article seeks funding for a feasibility study to assess existing conditions, to study enrollment patterns, evaluate existing and needed educational space, and ultimately identify cost-effective and educationally appropriate solutions. And all this is happening because MSBA had invited the town of Long Meadow into a grant program to address the physical needs both at Glenbrook. Williams was not invited in. It's a 270-day eligibility period, so the clock is ticking. It started August 1st for us. And tonight, your appointment to the school building committee is another benchmark in meeting the requirements and maintaining our status in that eligibility period. So if anyone has more information, wants to receive more information about this, there is a lot of information located on the Longmeadow Public School website. And you can also watch the video on LCTV. A recap of the state primary election. Voting was very brisk. There were 3,379 votes cast, representing about 28% voter turnout. Early voting will be scheduled for the November 8th election. That schedule is being developed now. Anyone interested in volunteering to help either with early voting or working on Election Day on November 8th should contact the town clerk at townclerk@longmeadow.org. And a huge thank you to the volunteers who worked on September 6th and early voting leading up to that, to primary day. And an item that did not make it to my written report, but I need to mention this tonight because it's quite phenomenal. I just want to note the retirement of Sergeant Eric Wisnowskis. He was a member of the Longmeadow Police Department for 27 years, and he retired on September 8th. He was most recently serving as our traffic safety officer. So a big thank you and congratulations to Sergeant Wisnowskis. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Can you just go into a little bit what the air handler vulnerability, what you mean by that?
To the best of my knowledge, without having the facilities director here to go any deeper, he has informed me that if it goes down, the HVAC system in the school goes down and we close the building. Further from that, I can get you more information for our next meeting.
Josh, I also believe these air handlers are original
Yes.
to the,
Right, they brought them over.
Yes.
well, no, they didn't, they never moved. I mean, they
Oh,
were
they
on
moved
this
around.
part of the building
Correct.
when this building existed in 1976 or whatever
Yes.
it was. So they weren't put in, 5 years ago. So they don't owe us much. I think at the time, we tried to save a few bucks on construction and said, we think they can last a while longer. They did last a while longer, but didn't last forever.
Mm,
So I think that's important for people to understand.
Sure.
It's not new stuff that we're replacing.
Right.
And is it supply chain issues cause it to, the estimate to go up so much?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, and
Just
they
like
have been on the
everything else.
capital plan, so this was a known expenditure, just not the cost increases that resulted.
Okay. Thank you for the context. Anything else, Dan?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right, monthly reports, and then the approval of the draft minutes from August 15th.
I'll move we approve the minutes of the August 15th Select Board meeting.
Second.
All those, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, unanimous. Eversource Western Mass Natural Gas Pipeline update. So we do have a bit of an update on this. There's not much movement going on with the state proceedings, to my knowledge. But we have, as many know, we've engaged an attorney for litigation on this topic, and we have requested the attorney to retain expert witnesses that is recommended for the litigation, 2 expert witnesses, and so we're authorized the attorney to move forward with the proceeding. We have gotten an estimate on the money it will cost to finish the litigation, and that will be on the warrant to ask for money at the special town meeting to complete the amount we think it'll take, the attorney thinks it will take, to go to finish that up. And we will discuss that more. We haven't spent much yet, but we want to make sure we have enough to go all the way through if we're going to continue spending. So that is what I have in the update. Any more from the rest of the board? Okay. Move on to the sewer rate study. Go ahead, Mark.
Oh, we discussed this at the last meeting, and unless there are additional questions, I'd like to move forward with the motions.
So I will tell you my hang-up is still the $100,000 hole for the year that would only be happening because we're doing it now rather than waiting until next year. I know this has been kicking around for a while. I wonder if there's been any discussion on what we should do with that, or if Paul wants to
I
weigh
mean,
in on
there are
that.
2 choices, the way I see it. One is don't do anything for another 8 months and implement it fiscal year 2024, or do it now. And we figured out a way. It's, I won't say it's the neatest thing in the world, but it's not overly complicated. It can be done. In my opinion, it fulfills an obligation that we had made way back when we said we were going to implement something with fiscal year 2023. And so I think we ought to move forward with it. I hope there's no question over whether this is the perfect solution, because I'll tell you, it's not the perfect solution. I'm not sure there is a perfect solution, but it's an improved solution over what we've got, and it's way ahead of the other things we've considered. And my approach, and I think I said this last meeting, is we ought to implement this. We ought to let it do its thing for a couple of 3 years and see what shakes out of it. Is it got all the benefits we thought, and does it have any detriments that we didn't anticipate? But to wait another 6 months is just, or 9 months actually, is just, in my opinion, making a difficult decision, kicking the can down the road. We know what we want to do, and we've identified a way to do it.
What's our balance in the sewer retained earnings, roughly?
It was about 600. Look who's in the corner. Mr. Sewer Retained Earnings.
I saw him sneaking.
It's probably about $600,000. While Paul's looking, do you have that, Paul?
757,000.
Okay, so for those at home who couldn't hear us, our sewer retained earnings is $757,000, which is as of the last time Paul looked, so it's probably plus or minus from that. We have a target of $500,000. Josh, there are two portions of this. One is implement a new rate policy. Part two was refund people who overpaid in the first quarter. And part three was, what do we want to do to make up the shortfall? And one of the options is just take it out of retained earnings. Right now, from what Paul's telling me, we got money in retained earnings that we can do that with. Not to mention the fact that it was a very dry summer. Historically, dry summers mean people use more water. Now, we are putting a cap on it, but generally our retained earnings fund goes way, way up in dry summers. And so, I don't think we've seen enough to see what our, first quarter revenue did. I guess, Paul, those numbers include money from first quarter revenue? No.
No, this would be the closeout of FY '22.
Okay.
It has to be certified by the Department of Revenue.
So we don't know if first quarter 2023 revenues exceeded our first quarter budget.
It's very difficult to do because of the change in the building,
Right, okay.
so it's hard to compare.
Fair enough. Anyway, Josh, that's kind of my take on this is I just see it as something we'd said we were going to do, something we ought to do, and I don't see a downside to it, to tell you the truth.
It's just strange for me because I came in the middle of this.
Right.
I'd never made a promise.
Yeah, so, yeah, right.
Yeah,
Right.
I came in the middle of it, and when it did come in after 2 years, it was, well, that's not right. But
Well, I think the answer was not that it wasn't right. What I heard was, it's a perfectly good idea. We just can't, Munis won't let us do it.
Right.
And so we had to go back and look at what Munis lets us do. And I'm the first one to say, we were hoping Munis would let us go to this, it was winter averaging, but it really doesn't work. And I think the fact that, and Mr. Shea made this comment, the fact that we went to quarterly billing has opened up this new opportunity that we didn't have before. I just think it's an important move. It's a significant change, but not an earth-shaking change. We're going to see what happens. There are very few losers in this thing, and I hope that there aren't going to be 75 people pounding at our select board meeting the day after the next round of sewer bills come out. But from what we've said, that shouldn't happen. Because remember, what we had proposed, which should have gone to effect, was a 57% rate increase.
Mhm.
This is only an 18% rate increase. So the smallest users are really much better off under this proposal than under what was passed by granted a prior group of people on the select board. I just think it's the right way to go.
Do you have your motion here?
I do. I'll make a motion that the select board, acting in their role as water and sewer commissioners, implement a sewer rate for the balance of fiscal year 2023 at $3.25 per sewer unit, and for residential customers to implement a maximum charge of 55 units in the first and second billing quarters of the fiscal year. There shall be no upper limit on the number of sewer units for which a residence will pay in the third and fourth quarters of the fiscal year.
Okay, and I'll second that. Dan, any discussion?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Josh was saying, right? This has been something that the town has been, and Mark and others on the board has been looking at for, 15 years, give or take. And I've been vocal about, again, commending Mark and others for all the work that you've done with this. I've evolved on the issue. I think a couple things I've learned being in this role just for a couple months now is that no matter what you do, people are going to be happy. There's going to be folks that are upset. But what I would like to see in the future is that in the near future, that we actually address the concerns of the water infrastructure across the town and look into this, more deeply in the coming months. I'm going to support this. I'm going to support the work that you've done, Mark, and I think the town does want to see us on these issues and other issues in the future work together more closely. And again, I appreciate all your work. But again, long term, we do need to take a serious look at the infrastructure as well as the water that we're drinking in town, because I get a lot of complaints from members of the community that they're concerned that there's chemicals in the water that they're very concerned about, and we need to look at this as a larger study overall. But again, I am going to support this, and Mark, I do appreciate the work that you put in this. I just hope in the future we can work more closely on this.
Yeah,
Josh, I have another motion.
you want to act on that one?
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I guess we got to vote, yeah.
Okay, and I will say, I've come around on, I think that this is an issue of fairness. We've been taking a lot of sewer charges from people who have been watering, whether we water too much in town, I think so, but that is a different question. But I think that I commend you and Lisa on the work. I think this is a good solution, and I'm also going to support it. We might have to be back revisiting, and also you sent me a water systems analysis from a few years ago. And, there's a lot of stuff to do in town. I know we've done some, but there's a lot, and so we're going to have to find the money for that. So, but in the meantime, I think this is. I think I'm ready to give it a shot. So I will take all those in favor. Okay. Unanimous again.
I want to make a motion that the Water and Sewer Department undertake steps to refund residential customers for payment made in the first quarter of fiscal year 2023 of all sewer fees paid for sewer usage of over 55 units. The billing and refund will be at, or was and will be at, a rate of $2.75 per unit.
Remember, that's just a credit, right?
That's just a credit.
Okay. All right, I'll second that one. Any discussion on that? Okay. All those in favor? Okay.
So the only other issue that we haven't addressed is the shortfall from because there's going to be a shortfall for the year because we underbilled in the first and second quarters, and I'd like to make a motion that any shortfall in the current fiscal year in the sewer department that we propose at a town meeting in the spring, that shortfall be made up from the sewer retained earnings. My understanding is we can't appropriate money out of sewer retained earnings, but we can't ask that the town meeting do that.
Paul?
Can I just make the recommendation that you do it in the fall town meeting? Only because if the Department of Revenue needs it for setting the tax rate, it'll be done prior.
I just didn't know we could do it in time. Absolutely. I'll amend my motion to the fall town meeting, sure.
Paul has spoken.
Yeah. And I think the amount, and so therefore, I'll set the amount at $100,000. I think it was like $104,000, but this was all based on estimates anyway. So if we ask for $100,000 to move from retained earnings, I think that'll be sufficient.
Okay, I'll second that. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor? Unanimous?
That's it. Thank
That's
you.
it, all right. And thank you, Lisa.
Can we just clarify what the rate is now?
326.
26, okay, because you said 25.
Uh-oh.
26.
You did motion.
I said 325?
Yep.
Whoops. I should have said 326. I apologize.
Is that a friendly amendment?
I'd like to amend my motion to $3.26. Thank you for catching that. The $3.26. Doesn't seem like much, but it's a lot of money.
We're gonna have to come back tomorrow night.
I'm surprised nobody else, thank you for catching it. So I'd like to change that motion to set a sewer rate of $3.26 with a 55-unit cap.
Second.
All those in favor?
Thank you. Thank you for catching that, whoever. Thank you.
All right, moving on to the EV charging station discussion. This is old business, we already voted on this, but we're bringing it back because we got an email from the Zimmers, and if you'd like to come up, Peter, and introduce yourself and explain why we're back here today.
Thank you. Peter Zimmer, 88 Ridge Road. And Josh, thank you for inviting me to the meeting. Appreciate it. Mark, Dan, nice to see you. My email really outlines everything that Paula and I both wanted to say. Just in summary, we are leasing a Hyundai Kona all-electric car, and we've had it for almost 2 years now. And the hardest part about having the car is finding adequate charging, whether it be, as I had outlined in my letter, the level 3 chargers, which are for longer distance, they're faster charging. Interesting what has happened, and I don't know why this is, but if you look at the level 3 chargers anywhere from Hartford to Springfield, over the last year and a half, when one breaks, it is never repaired. So there are virtually no level 3 chargers other than the level 3 chargers that are for Teslas. Tesla has a whole system that's very different than for non-Tesla vehicles. So it makes the average person who lives locally rely upon what they can do for charging either at home through their own charger or using public chargers. And in our area, there are not very many level 2 and no level 3 chargers available. So when we were just driving one day by Public Works and we saw that there was a charger, I was amazed. So I went over and I tried to plug it in. I did plug it in, but I could see that it wasn't set up. And then we called your office the next day to try to find out what was happening. It wasn't covered, so nobody would know that it was not functional. There was no sign that would indicate that it wasn't functional. And it took a lot of correspondence between us and the town before we finally found out that we needed to submit a letter in order to make this some kind of official correspondence. And then when we found out what the billing structure would be for the level 2 chargers that we were going to have in town, we were really kind of astounded, as you can see from my letter. I understand, Mark, that you have some concerns about whatever the town investment has been in getting these chargers and how much it's going to cost the town to provide them. But what I can tell you is, and as just to reiterate what I've said in my letter, is that I've been involved in a lot of these studies, and what they say is that really the important things in public chargers are the location, the rate, and how close they are to other things. They want you to be close to restrooms. They want you to be close to food. They want you to be close to shopping. Because all the evidence shows that when you have isolated level 2 chargers, people just don't use them. No matter what the rate is, people just don't use them. A level 3 charger, where you're really there for maybe for half an hour or 45 minutes, it can be in a more isolated place. It can be at a car dealership, which is the most popular place where they are, without some of those other advantages. So when I look at where ours are proposed to be, the high school seems like a pretty good spot. It could be for students, it could be for staff, it could be for teachers. The adult center is also a good spot because people can go in, they can use the restroom, they can maybe get something to eat or drink. The athletic fields are great on Saturdays and Sundays when there may be games, but pretty much guarantee that unless you happen to live right over there, they're not going to be used during the week. And the town yard is relatively absurd, unless we have that there just specifically for our own future electric car use.
That's the case, yeah.
Yes. I thought, gee, that's good. I could direct my car off and I could walk across the street to Franconia and I could go play golf. But it seemed silly to me. But then when I saw that you wanted to charge $8 an hour for what would yield at most 22 miles, and my wife is more online savvy than I am, but she's in all these online with all these different groups that talk about who is using what charger, what are they working, are they not working. It's a very active environment, and if we charge $8 an hour, I guess we'd be maybe 4 or 5 times more than any other charger anywhere in the area. If you look at a lot of other municipalities, you can charge for free in Northampton. You can, along the Connecticut shoreline, there's all kinds of free level 2 charging. They're really abundant. If you look at the state parks in Connecticut, they're also free. And I think that part of what their impetus is to try to take a leadership role with green energy. And we have an opportunity here to take that kind of a leadership role. And I know in municipal budgets, there's all kinds of money that is spent well, and there's all kinds of money that is not spent so well. Not usually by design, but maybe by mistake. Well, I think here we have an opportunity to be a leader, and for people to be able to say, well, Long Meadow is taking a leadership role in providing at least an hour of free use when people are shopping, when people are doing something. It's a way that we can make a statement. It's a way that we can help our image as a town as well. I think I covered everything that I want to say. I'm really, really curious about what you guys want to do and are going to do.
Well, thank you, Peter. I will say that none of us having electric cars, it did not occur, at least to me, to ask how many miles you're getting out of a charge.
Well, Josh, that I find, when you said that, when you wrote that to me, I found that to be one of the most interesting things. Because as a municipal board, you're voting on things all the time that you don't experience personally, whether you're voting on educational needs or you're voting on anything. Not having a vehicle just means that it requires more research.
Well, or people can tell us.
We
see what you're
have
saying,
been
yeah.
offering for over 2 months.
Okay, well,
we have
it didn't come to us.
Josh, excuse me, but point of order, this isn't an open discussion forum.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a select board meeting, and that's
All
a
due respect,
particular
I-
bugaboo of mine.
Yeah.
Select board meetings are select board meetings. We have time for citizens' comments. I appreciate your comments. Please let us discuss
We're
it.
going to move on. Thank you.
I had no idea, Mark.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, anyway, As with our charge now, no one will ever use these. I think we'll never get an idea of the demand we may have in town. And I did some math after I got the email, and I talked to Corinne, and she made the point of how many gallons you're getting, cents per mile, essentially. And I figured out for my Highlander, even when gas was $4 a gallon, I was getting about 20 cents. It was costing me about 20 cents a mile. And the minimum it would be is 27 cents with this charging, and up to 57 cents, or I don't remember the exact number. But basically, we were making electric charging much, much more expensive than gas, and that just does not make sense to me. I think we need to supplement the cost as part of our goal in town of going green. And also, if no one uses these, we already have fixed charges that we're going to lose out on. So if there's no income coming in on these, they're money losers, period. We'll lose more money if we charge under.
I don't agree with that, but go ahead. I'll let you finish.
It's in the memo. We have fixed charges that are just the holding fees. So I think what we should do, and I will also say, Mark, I have a sneaking suspicion that a private company would get a better rate than us by some sort of agreement. So I do think we need to explore leasing out these areas to another company, because I just think we're getting raked over here. But I think we do need to take the lead on here and propose, and I would propose that we either do, I like the East Hampton model of 25 cents per kilowatt hour, and then you charge hourly once the car is fully charged to encourage people to leave, free up the spot. So Corinne estimated that her assumption was that it would be 12.8 kilowatt hours per hour, and that would be roughly $3.20 an hour, which may be a little bit expensive, but I think it's a good number to see how this would work. And then we could charge. East Hampton does $2.50 an hour once the car is charged. I think I would say charge even more than that, because we don't have that many, so maybe $5 an hour. So that would be my proposal. And I think that we have a stated town goal as of last year of going green, of taking environmental and climate considerations. We're making a decision, and I think that this is the way to do it. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment. I thank Mr. Zimmer for his comments, and Josh, but I've gotten a lot of calls from people, notes from people who said the town can't afford to and should not be subsidizing people who own electric cars or lease electric cars. And so, if you recall, what we did is we looked at the cost, and I agree, the cost seems very high for electric charges, and we are not trying to recover any fixed costs. Our costs were based entirely, 100%, on the electric costs that we were charging. I think we may have rounded it up a couple of cents. But, you know, the town would need to, I think, if we were going to do that, we'd need a bigger forum than one person who leases an electric car coming in and talking to the select board, and let the select board hear from people who, whether or not they believe we, A, should take on the role of encouraging green energy and subsidizing it as a town, or B, you know, the people who don't own electric cars should not be subsidizing people who do. I think it's fraught with concerns, and that's why the easiest way, but the most, I thought, fair way was, look, we're not trying to make money on it. And Corinne's original memo had a lot in there about the capital costs of this equipment, how we should amortize the capital costs and the repair costs and all that kind of stuff. And we literally, or at least I, discounted all that because most of it came through grants. We just said, while it's operating, and this doesn't include when it eventually, or if it eventually breaks, we've got to do the repairs. It just says the electric costs are things that are something that the town ought to recover its money from. I will say that the Springfield JCC just installed chargers, so if you need a car charger, there's one at the JCC. That's
a long time ago. It's not used.
It's not used. Well,
And it's way below, Mark, what you're suggesting.
Well, but all I'm saying is, there are other chargers in
I know this
the area,
You're
so,
not supposed to respond, but
so,
in an hour, you can only, I took a picture, a Photoshop of this yesterday. It's 7 kilowatt hours in an hour and 11 minutes, not 12.
I mean, Mr. Zimmer, and with all due respect, and I appreciate that you have an electric car, and I think getting one myself, but people who get an electric car cannot depend upon the town to provide their energy to run their car, or to subsidize their energy that runs their car. They should make an arrangement to do it, whether putting a charger in their house or whatever it is. I mean,
Why have it?
so the point is, I think we just need to understand that, the town doesn't have excess resources, and unless we have a reason to go back on the system we decided, we're literally just trying to cover costs. And I know I've said that twice, but we're trying to cover costs, provide this as a service. If our costs are too high, then there's something wrong with our electric system of how we're being billed. But it's strictly a manner of covering costs.
Ma'am?
So-
I'm on for speaking too, I'm a separate person,
Well,
shall I come
no,
back
that was your
later?
resident comment.
Okay.
So,
Um,
I mean, frankly, when this was on the agenda, I was surprised. We made a decision. We haven't even opened them up. So for us to say, well, nobody's using them, we haven't turned them on yet, is my understanding.
Mark, I'll remind you of our last agenda item. We do sometimes have to change course.
I get it, but all I'm saying is, generally what we do is we say, what was the impact of our decision? And the fact is, we haven't turned them on yet. We're responding to something that, we're finding a solution that we don't know there's yet a problem. If we turn these things on and in 3 months not a soul is plugged into them, we ought to be sitting back here and figuring it out.
To me, there is a problem now, because we are charging essentially $8 a gallon for gas. And that doesn't sit well with me. And if we're trying to encourage, the goal is not just to recoup money, it's not to make money. I know we got a tight budget, there's no doubt about that. But we have another goal. We were given the warrant was, we had a town meeting warrant last year, the annual town meeting, this year, the annual town meeting to have a green focus on our decision-making. And I think that this is one. If it made sense to me at the time, but I was working on incomplete information, and I feel pretty strongly about this one, that I want to encourage the use. And I think I will, taking a flyer on 55 gallons, 55 units, I'm willing to take a flyer on this for a little bit. Dan?
Yeah, and I agree with Josh. I think we need to look at a significant reduction. I mean, $8 for an hour to charge, I think, is quite frankly outrageous. After doing more research myself, hearing from residents, maybe I'm hearing from different residents than you, Mark, but I think there's a lot more benefits than the town just recovering some funds. We have to look at the bigger picture and actually be a leader when it comes to renewable energy. And I think that's what people are expecting. We've voted on this, as Josh mentioned in town meeting before, to take some of these measures. We're doing it with water as well. So I think this is a good opportunity, and I appreciate Josh bringing this back to the forefront for us today. So I would support a significant reduction in that charge on the per kilowatt hour. Also, one other thing, as the guest had, Mr. Zimmerman had, or Mr. Zimmer, sorry, had alluded to earlier, was the location as well. So I think we have the opportunity moving forward to look at better locations for these charging stations, and I do think that we should also look into having an advisory committee, which has been proposed before in some other correspondence that I did come across. So I'm fairly new to the board. We're not experts in EV charging stations, but certainly I think it's fair to hear from the residents on this and have a group that would report to the board and provide some suggestions. But right now, where the location of these charging stations are and the cost to actually charge, I think is outrageous. And we should be looking at being a leader. So I would support a reduced cost, a rate rather.
And Brian, I'll just say, oh, go ahead, Mark.
No, I was just gonna say, we'd be setting a rate based on no information other than what is in Corinne's memo, which said it costs us about $8 per hour to run this thing. So, we can pull a number out of the air, but that's all we'd be doing. I also think that we, ought to hear from more people in town. And to just say, we think we know, I don't know. I don't have an electric car. My son has one. He's told me a lot about how his runs. And it's very different from what I'm hearing here, that this, I just don't understand why this is, the cost of the charge is, why we're paying what we're paying. I have no idea, but that, I got to rely on the people who told us that it costs us $8 an hour to run it. And if we want to subsidize it, that ought to be a town-wide decision to subsidize it, because you can't say you're going to subsidize it without putting a dollar figure on how much you're subsidizing. Are we going to subsidize it up to $1,000 a year, up to $10,000 up to a year, or up to $100,000 a year? Because just to say we're going to do it and subsidize it is like signing a blank check, especially with 2 different chargers and another one or 2 more coming, that we'd be literally signing, one at the high school, one at that's coming, one at Wolf Swamp Fields that's coming, and the 2 that we've talked about. So before I'd sign a blank check, I'd want to know what we're doing.
Well, this is one of those issues where, and you say you hear from people, I've not heard from anybody. I heard from the Zimmers, that's it. And my email address is on the website. People can call me, my phone number's on there. And I don't hear. I would love to hear from people.
I'll forward you the emails I got. So that's what.
Yeah, don't call me, but you can email me. But I would love to see it, because I'm working off the information I got. $8 an hour, I believe, is the peak on demand that's based on our tennis courts. It may not be that much. Eversource may change the rate. That's what Corinne's memo, I read it again today. And that's the information I have. And so if people want to, I'm okay not voting tonight. I'd like to hear what Tom has to say. I'd like to hear from more people. I'm fine with that. You okay with that, Dan?
Yeah, no, I'm okay with that.
What's our timeline, Lynn, I know we have to program them.
Yep.
That's it? We're just waiting to program?
At Wolf Swamp, I'm sorry, at the DPW and the Adult Center, yes. The other Wolf Swamp location's on order, and obviously those fields aren't open anyway. And the high school is paused indefinitely until additional funds are found to purchase the chargers.
And the high school's gonna be a 3, right?
2.
Oh, it's also a 2, okay.
Yep. All 4 locations are public access charging. It's not just for staff, like I
What's
think
at
there was a
DPW,
mention.
because we will have an electric car.
Yes, and there's plenty of office buildings in that area. You
Right.
could golf at the golf course and charge while you're there. Yep. And just if you would allow me, I've talked about the locations before that were selected. These were 4 locations that were part of the Eversource Make Ready program. 3 of them are new construction or renovations. And so that made sense that if we're going to make an investment in new infrastructure, that we should be looking at new renewable green technology, energy, and fueling mechanisms, and that's what we did in these 3 locations. And Wolf Swamp Fields will also host many practices during the weeknight where parents or people driving people to and from sit and spend time or walk those fields or use Twin Hills as well. So I do think they made sense, these locations,
So-
and I'm hopeful that they'll all be used.
So I'm going to say this. I want to hear from people. I don't want to, you can tell me if you're opposed to subsidizing, fine. I want to hear from people how much they're willing to spend, what they think is a reasonable amount, and their use case. So I have some more information to go on. I'm just going on my own calculations on cents per gallon, and it may be incomplete. So if people can elucidate me, I would love it. Thank you. Go ahead, Mark.
And Josh, I just wanted to also comment, I had a conversation as recently as today with Lynn about a proposal to lease town space to a commercial entity who would design, install, and operate, I think, hopefully a level 3 charger in town. And it's the kind of thing that, it's not in my opinion, this isn't a core competency of the town, being either electric provider or doing, but, to make money on saying, we'll lease you the land for X number of dollars a month, to me makes a lot of sense, that we'll make money on the lease of the land, and if the potential developers think it's a valuable location, and there are going to be people who might want to use this level 3 charger that they'd install, the town will make money. And from my perspective, that may be the way to better handle this whole situation, because we get into, in my opinion, the method of the town entering into businesses that we're not good at, that we don't know anything about, that ends up costing us money and we end up changing our mind on. And that's why in a situation like this, that when there are, certainly in, California and Florida, better climate areas where there are a lot of electric cars, there are companies, you can go on the web, there are companies who do this for a living, and all they need is a place to do their thing, and I think that's where the town ought to focus.
I think we're proving right now that it's not quite our forte. So I think that's good thinking. So I unless you're going to move, then I would like to hear more from people. And I always hear, I do hear occasionally from folks, but I'm begging to hear now, because I really want some more information on this.
The only thing I would, I guess, add would be, would we have the ability to look at the usage once it's up and running at the adult center of those stations and try to get some data? And
Oh, it's all through an app, right? We'll get
Yep.
pretty
Yeah.
detailed reports, is what my understanding. Yeah.
Because, right, it just goes back to what we were saying before. With the $8, I just don't see how we're gonna be able to get much data. Maybe we will. We'll get a ton of data, and it'll say the town collected a lot of money and cut into some of the costs and fees involved. That could happen. I don't know. I don't think that would be the case, but I would like to actually get some data so we can make a more educated decision. But with that being said, out of the gate, I also would prefer that we would look at a significantly reduced rate to start getting some of this data and come back with rates and general public opinions on this as well. So.
In my power to do this, I'm pretty committed to lowering the rate. It's just a matter of how much and how we do it, if we continue down this path. So, but I would like more information.
Josh, I'll go back and say, again, if we sell electricity for less than it costs us, I think we need to put it into a budget somewhere. You can't just have an open-ended commitment to sell electricity for less than it costs us.
Sure. Maybe Corinne could look into how that's done, and I know she looked at a lot of other towns on that. All right, last piece of old business, one-day liquor license policy.
There's a permanent building committee right in front of that.
Yeah. Permanent Building Committee, E?
There sure is, yeah. Permanent Town Building Committee. On the agenda, we have the town board and descriptions page, and then we have a draft changes also attached.
Josh, one of the things I read through the changes, and, when I looked at it, the shortcomings that I currently see that have been brought to light by the change in the Permanent Building Committee from focusing on construction of the DPW and the Adult Center to focusing on ongoing projects, has been their interactions with CPA, CPC, and maybe the town maintenance department. And those aren't necessarily addressed in this specifically. to me, there was a real problem, and I'll use that word, last year when things became before, and I think it had to do with center school windows versus center school roof, came before the before the capital planning committee, when the building committee members had a difference of opinion relative to what either capital planning saw or perhaps even the town maintenance team saw. And that's what led me to say, we need to better define where the building committee fits relative to that when it comes to major changes to a building. And so I guess I'm concerned that, and this talks about in terms of the size, and the capital limitation of $2 million, but it doesn't talk about those interactions, and I think that was the weak link.
Mhm. Do you have any proposed language you'd like to add?
Well, I had some, but I didn't really move forward with it because of what we had. But what I'd like to do is, I think what we ought to do is engage the chair of the permanent building committee, engage the chair of capital planning, and maybe even the community preservation, and get them to recommend something that we could then put together with the select board. So it's how would they like to work together, and how will that work for the town? Because right now, it's like free for all. Everybody's off doing their own thing, and I think that's the problem. I mean, because my personal suggestions, I have some, but I don't think they're any better than any more workable necessarily than talking to the other folks.
Yeah, I remember when you first brought this up, and it was, the responsibilities seem very amorphous, and yeah, and it causes some strife and issues, and I think it doesn't help the work order get done effectively.
I mean, the issue is, and we're going to be talking about this potentially, or did, I know when there was the charter discussion. The town manager and the DPW put together capital proposals, and that goes to the capital planning committee. And then their recommendations then come before the select board. The question is, I mean, if in a perfect world, in my opinion, the capital planning committee would be required to engage with the permanent building committee, so that the recommendation that came back to us then is based on the joint best agreement of those, as reviewing what was put forward by the maintenance department, or the maintenance department and the town manager. Otherwise, you're going to end up with things circling around that are nuts. But there's really, there's a limited number of things that we've defined what capital improvements are to buildings. That's already defined in our capital planning committee. And I think we say, if it's capital planning involves a building, they have to get sign, and let them duke it out. I hate to say that, but then come to us with the unified solution. And to me, that would be an approach, if not the approach, that I would probably take with this. But right now, there's no consultation between those two groups.
Yeah, I think reaching out to the chairs and having them discuss and working a proposal to us, I think, is a good solution to this.
The alternative, and I just have to put this out there, is that we thank the permanent building committee for their work, and we say, we're not doing anything now, and we're just going to go back to the way they are, and say, you have no role in this. But they've proven themselves useful. We've created the permanent building committee because they have expertise in some of these things, and I think it would be a mistake to cut them out of that capital planning and/or community preservation issues that have to do with buildings. And so that's my take on it.
Yeah, I can't anticipate anything right now, but even like a renovation of over $2 million, it would be good to have the committee still.
It's not even a renovation. I mean, when it comes down to, and I'll use the example of Center School. Center School, they looked at Center School, and for whatever reason, they said repairing the leaking roof is more important than replacing the windows, which were inoperable and all. And they didn't get to add that input to the to the capital planning committee. Now, was it more important? I don't know, but that was their take on it. And in fact, you walk through the Center School, coming out of the ceiling is a hose going into a bucket, because the ceiling leaks. So it's pretty important that we repair the leaking roof in Center School. It's just a matter of where it sits. So, I mean, that, somehow getting that to work is something I think is important. Maybe we just go back to the capital planning and the permanent building committee and say, come up with us with a workable plan that has to do with capital proposals. We know that it's going to be prepared by town manager and the DPW. It usually goes for what I'll call citizen review by capital planning. Let's get another set of eyes on it.
Yeah, in the scenario you just talked about, with the permanent building committee disagreed with capital planning, end of the day, capital planning won out. It would still be the case, I guess.
Well,
At least they,
I mean, the process is the capital planning will make a recommendation. If we tell them, though, you need to consult with the
Yeah.
permanent building committee, at least they'll get their input. Last year, they didn't get their input until after they had pretty much gone through their decision process, when somebody said, oh my goodness, they didn't even think about the whatever it was. That was my take. So I don't know if you want us to, I mean, I'll take a shot at this, but more importantly, I think we ought to give it to Dr. Metz and Ms. Bergeron to let them come up
Yeah, I
with
think-
how that's going to work.
I think that's the way to do it, and then we'll have, if any changes need to be made to other descriptions based on changes in here, that'd be important, we could tackle it all at once.
Well, yeah, I mean, if, this is a charter for the permanent building committee, but I think we want to add into that whatever we need to do with capital. Capital planning's already got a charter that seems to work okay. You know, I'm just recommending that we do
Right, but they may
something.
need to change theirs to
Well,
include
Would be the-
consultation with the permanent town building committee.
But only on items, you know, capital planning deals with a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with
Right.
permanent building committee. It's, you know, buying a new snowplow or something like that. Then talk to them about that.
All right, well, I think we'll, Dan, you have anything to say on this?
No, I mean, I agree with what Mark and what you were saying. I think we need to get these committees involved. So would they come back in front of the board, or would this be a separate discussion?
Well, they can meet and they can recommend changes to us. And
Mhm.
they
Yeah.
could appear if they would like to, but we'll ultimately be voting on it.
Lynn, do you have any comments about that process?
Well, I do think you have at the end of the agenda, there's a conversation about the charter recommendations, and capital planning was one of those that was left on the table for discussion. So time could be right to look at both. So I do think you'd have to do both at the same time if you wanted to have permanent building have a seat at the table with the capital process. But I think it goes further than that too, because capital only happens at a very specific time of year. And then outside of that, just making sure the mission of the permanent building committee is what you want them to be doing.
Okay, thanks, Lynn. All right, moving on to the one-day liquor license policy. So we have on the agenda, we have the last affirmed one-day liquor license policy from November 7th, 2016. And do we know what the amendment was in 2007? Or why it was affirmed in 2016?
So 2016, I believe, was a full look at all the policies and procedures, just from doing research through old minutes. I'm not sure what the changes were from 05 to 07.
Okay.
My guess is it was the insurance
Yeah.
Yeah.
requirement, but in 2016, it was just revoted it without change. So, and Josh, my
So-
take on policy is perfectly fine. I wouldn't make any changes to this policy unless we want to outlaw one-day liquor licenses for for town buildings. And this addresses the issue. Events on town property or premises where alcohol beverages will be served, all licenses must submit the following prior to the event. I don't know that we've been doing that, but if we have, then apparently we're covered.
Insurance and safe serve, yeah.
Yes, so we've been doing it. You know, it's,
Mark, this was originally put on the look-ahead because you wanted to discuss this.
no, I didn't want to discuss necessarily the one-day liquor license policy. I guess I wanted to discuss whether maybe that's part of it. Should liquor licenses be offered in town buildings?
So, yeah, so that's why we're
Okay.
talking about it now.
You know, I clearly think there's a liability. I think there's a problem, and I mean, this policy seems to cover it. I have no clue whether $1 million insurance is enough. It seems like a ton. It seems like it's enough, but you know, the issue to me is always becomes liability, town's liability.
1 million, I'd speak from my personal life, 1 million per occurrence for a liquor policy that's normal. It is high, but that is what normally is normal in the industry. And that's on top of, a server will probably have their own insurance as well on top of that. The one thing I was wondering if we want to do here is, and Mark, you and I talked over email about the street closing applications. We sometimes are getting liquor license requests, one-day liquor license requests, a few days before the event. And I would like to put in here that we reserve the right to not act within 30 days of the event, to encourage earlier applications.
So Josh, if I could, I just want, the application actually says they shall be submitted 30 days prior to the event. As an operations, we've always said we did that because of meeting schedules of the select board, but if it gets in time to be on our agenda, we'll act on one tonight that might be tomorrow. We've
done it, yeah.
And we've done it, and we probably ought to continue to do it. The point is, though, that the application does say shall be submitted 30 days in advance. And so either we need to, and I think that's what I said in my note to you, we either need to change that so it says, should be, or we reserve the right to not act on anything submitted 30 days in advance, or really hold to something that needs to be submitted 30 days in advance.
Right, and the reason I don't think we need to hold to it, but I want to reserve the right to not act, because I'm envisioning where we have somebody give an application, they don't show up, we want more information, and we don't get it. And we're not going to act on that at that point, or we'll just deny it. I think people need to know that we may need more information, we need more time. So that would be my reason for putting the policy, even if it's on the application. I think I don't know how many people look at this policy, but it could be useful to have something to point to rather than just the application. And Marty, the other reason I have this on the agenda, if we could discuss if there's something you think in the adult center, or with the adult center issues with the applications, if there's something you want to put in here to dictate how we handle those in the future.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Josh. One of the things I think we ought to be considering is limiting the number for a given group or a given. Now, the problem is the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission acts on that, and it's very difficult for us to. You know better than I do as the liquor license attorney, but can we supersede the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission, which says how many? It limits the number of one-day liquor licenses that you can have in a year before you need to actually get a full-time liquor license, and it's something like 30 in a year, and that's 3 a month or 2.5 a month, and I don't know that we're there, but that certainly is one issue that's a consideration. I think to me the bigger issue was, and it may have been addressed, was are the events that are selling liquor considered town events or considered private events? I wanted to make sure that they were absolutely private events. It sounds like there was a meeting that, and I wasn't there, but it sounds like there's a meeting that's resolved that they are private events, that they have nothing to do with the town.
They are private events, and we could memorialize it in here if we want, that
Oh.
town resources cannot be used for advertising or for running the events.
I'd love to see that.
That would be that was my suggestion,
Okay.
right here, to make
I
it
think
crystal
that-
clear, because I think that is,
Yeah.
and it helps our liability if we can point towards our policy.
The
I see.
last sentence of the policy, you could just refine.
Yeah, and so town departments may not be applicants for one-day liquor licenses, and town resources may not be used to advertise or facilitate events.
I think that's great.
So just for, that would mean that if, for example, the one you've been getting in front of you a lot, LACCF, holds an event at the adult center, they would not be able to advertise their event in the Voice.
Okay.
The Voice isn't a town document, it's a FLOCA document.
It is.
Oh, even though
It
FLOCA...
is now.
Oh, it's a town,
There's been some untangling of
Okay.
public-private partnerships.
Huh.
the answer is yes. We could not do that.
Right.
I mean, the other thing I thought you were going to talk about is Leaf, having a Leaf dance that they don't have any, they used to have them at the community house, now I think they have them at Long Meadow Country Club, but, Leaf can't use town, even though it's a private organization, they were using town resources to promote a Leaf event where there was a liquor license. That goes way, way back.
Oh, how were they? They weren't advertising with the town, were they?
I would imagine
don't
if the
know.
superintendent put out a newsletter or an email.
Yeah, I don't
that
remember.
Talked
if
about
it
the
does.
event, that's what I was thinking of when you said that.
Well,
Well,
the way around it is to, instead of barring advertising, is, and I know you have said this on applications in the past, it can say this is not a town event. The advertisement has to say it's not a town event.
Well, if somebody purchases an advertisement in The Voice, is that the town endorsing it? There's a lot of things that are advertisements in The Voice that the town, maybe if it doesn't, it probably says, we don't necessarily endorse what's advertised. That's very different from the adult center staff writing an article that says, please come to this event, or making phone calls to get people to the event. I mean, advertising is, it's freedom of speech. I got no problem with them advertising it.
Yeah.
If they're paying for the ad.
Well,
It's very different from, it said town resources cannot be used to advertise. They're not using a town resource to advertise it. Are they?
no, that's true, you're not. I'm just trying to make it so in the future, there's less controversy with the applications and anyone else who, if other groups start doing things like this, so it's crystal clear on what they can and cannot do. So are you, rather, striking out the advertising from what I said before.
Fine, just say
Okay,
facilitate
yeah. Right. Town resources may not be used to facilitate. the
Organize or
event.
facilitate these events.
Yeah,
That's fine.
Are they being used now, though? I mean, that's what I'm trying to
My
understand.
understanding is they are no longer being used now, but they were.
And how
Six-
how
four
were they
seconds.
on the newsletter?
No.
Okay.
Somebody on our staff, on the staff of the adult center, was making phone calls and doing planning for the event.
Gotcha.
So they were using town
that's what we were trying to untangle.
resources.
And
So-
I would feel more comfortable personally if we
Right.
had
That's fine.
crystallized it. Okay, so you got that one?
I think so. More importantly, Mike.
I got it.
So town
Yeah.
resources cannot be used to organize or facilitate these events?
Right.
Okay, so we'll put that together and prepare, bring it back to
Yep.
the next. Thank you, Josh.
Now, are town resources used to clean up after events? Like, I know you pay for
Well,
the
they pay
rental,
for the- they pay
so it
for it.
includes, that's not facilitating, though, it's
Right.
cleaning the room, all right.
I thought we had talked about, when we talked about town property, we were talking about schools, right, and not having alcohol. in
Well, that's-
any of the schools.
That's a
That-
school policy.
So that would be
not-
separate from
We can't
this.
make a policy for the school anyway,
Okay.
yeah, and they have that policy
Okay.
already. All right. Next up, the Energy and Sustainability Committee is making a presentation to the Select Board about Project Yes. I think Andrea was on with us. Is she there, Mike?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm Steve Shinopoulos with Homeworks. I'm here with Andrea. I'm just not sure. Oh, I think sure. There she is.
All right, we can see you, Andrea. You go ahead.
Good evening. I'm waiting for Stephen to show up. Perhaps he will in a moment. There he is. Thank you. So, just for the record, I'm Andrea Chasen. I live at 236 Crestry Circle, and I am chair of the Long Meadow Energy and Sustainability Committee. And I'm here tonight to ask and to make a recommendation to the Select Board to support participating in a memorandum of understanding with an organization called Homeworks, and I'll get a little bit more into that in a moment. And Stephen Shinopoulos is here from Homeworks in order to answer some questions about that. So as a little bit of background, I believe you all have received a copy of the presentation that I submitted, and I don't want to read the whole thing, but I just want to emphasize a few points. Particularly the Energy and Sustainability Committee is really working to complement the work of the town in looking at how we can reduce greenhouse gases and increase our transition ultimately to renewable energy. And one of the ways that the committee felt would be the most successful and probably the lower hanging fruit, so to speak, would be to really encourage homeowners, renters, and actual homeowners to have energy audits and perform the weatherization programs that are available under the Mass Save. And in looking at that, we reached out to Mass Save and found out that in the last couple of years, about 550 homes all told, and it may just 550 energy audits have been performed. We don't know, in fact, if that's also duplicates in some homes. And we have no way of tracking whether or not there's been any work that's been done as a result of those energy audits. I should point out that there are about 5,900 homes in Longmeadow. 95% of them were built in the last, are 50 years old or older. And so we know that they are a prime target for energy audits and weatherization programs that really ultimately will help us reduce greenhouse gases for the town and increase the benefits to the homeowners by reducing their energy bills. So it's a twofold process on that one. When looking at developing this project with a strong initiative of education, outreach, marketing, and getting the information as to how we're doing, we reached out to Mass Save, and they're a little difficult to work with, and so in the sense that they never get back to you and they don't provide any information would be the first part of it. And the second part of it is that they also don't provide any tracking information, and they don't, their marketing is fairly limited. And I turned to the Harold Grinspoon Energy Safe program to find out how they're doing. And they're the ones who referred me to Homeworks, which is an organization outside of the Boston area, but it has partnered very successfully with the Harold Grinspoon Energy Safe Foundation to improve the number of energy audits being conducted in West Springfield, Springfield, and Pittsfield, as well as increase the number of weatherization programs and to provide information and feedback to the partners as to how they're doing. And so I reached out to Homeworks, and Stephen Shinopoulos, who's here, is the outreach coordinator from there. And we talked about what our goals from the Energy and Sustainability Committee are, and felt that there was a good match between what we want to accomplish and what Homeworks could provide to us. I should point out that the Mass Save program in general is not a free program for any of us. We all pay into our utility bills as an amount of money that goes into a trust fund, the Mass Save Trust Fund. And all of the entities that work under the Mass Save umbrella receive their financial support from Mass Save. So in looking at this and the recommendation that we enter into an agreement and partnership with Homeworks, I want to emphasize that there is no cost to the town. This is a memorandum of understanding that allows each side to work together, evaluate, and terminate at any point without any problems with the termination. But the advantage to Long Meadow is fairly significant. Homeworks actually is a one-stop shop entity, and they will provide the energy audit. They will make the appointments, and they will help do that. They will conduct the energy audits, and then in many situations, they'll perform some of the weatherization programs through their own company. And I'm going to turn to Stephen in a moment and ask him to explain a little bit more about that. But I also added into this presentation a sample, and I want to emphasize this, is it is a sample memorandum of understanding that Stephen put together for us. And while he put the Long Meadow Energy and Sustainability Committee as the partner, I actually think it should be the select board that would be partnering with Homeworks. And they've done this in other communities around the state. So if I could, do you have any questions for me at the moment, or can I turn this over to Stephen?
Josh.
Mark has a question for you.
Yeah, Andrea, thank you for bringing this to us. I'll start off by saying I've had a home energy audit done. I'm one of the 550, I guess, who's had it done. I encourage anybody in town who hasn't done it to do it. If nothing else, you get a couple of great power strips and a lot of light bulbs. But I guess my question, Andrea, is, you know, you live in town, I live in town. I still get two letters or postcards a week or from somebody, please do an energy audit with us. So what are we going to do differently with this that will be more successful than what, you know, Mass Save and all the power companies and utility companies have been doing so far by inundating us with letters and requests? So what's going to be different here that's going to make this?
What's different with this compared to all the soliciting that we're getting from the town? Why is this better?
For me, there's a number of reasons why this would be a preferable entity to work with. First of all, I'm just going to give you a little anecdote about my experience with my fourth energy audit to explain why I think it is preferable to work with this company. My husband and I contacted the Mass Save phone number to schedule an appointment for an energy audit, fourth one we've had. And one of the reasons why we wanted to do it is because we knew that in order to even qualify for heat pumps or anything else at this point, we would need an updated energy audit. It took us about 3 weeks of nonstop phone calling to actually reach a person. And then once we reached a person, it took a while to connect to the company that would be doing the actual energy audit, which is not under, it's another company, Rise Engineering. I think we're all a little bit familiar with Rise Engineering. They came in, performed an energy audit, and then they give us the name of third and fourth parties to contact to actually perform some of the work that they recommend. And then that's how you get to qualify for rebates. So there are a lot of barriers already set up in terms of reaching somebody through Mass Save. You have to get a hold of someone, you have to make an appointment, you have to hope that you're reaching the right entity, and then you wait for them to come in, and then they do that, but it takes a lot of energy. We have a very small uptake of the Mass Save program in this town. We have a lot of people who they throw away the mailers, they don't do anything about it. And one of the things we really want to do is significantly market and educate the community, literally through one of the programs that we've come up with is where we take the information and we literally go door to door to the homeowners. But we also want to be able to be in a place where people can sign up for an audit and get it done. And one of the things that Homeworks does, and I just experienced this up at Deerfield Fair, is they will actually partner with the entity and provide the actual sign up right there. So if we can get people, for example, we want to have this for October 8th and 9th when we're hosting the Long Meadow Fall Festival, and we're having a booth there from the Energy and Sustainability Committee. And Homeworks would provide support staff to actually be there to sign people up for the audits, and then give them a date certain and perform them, and go out and participate, and then do the work. And so it reduces the number of barriers for individuals to actually get the work done. So the advantage for Long Meadow as a whole is to create an environment in which we reduce the barriers for the end user, and we really think about what it means to get them into a situation where they're going to be actively, we're going to reach them in a very active way, and we're going to work with them. And Homeworks has already said that they'll participate in workshops, they'll participate in other events where we do signups, they'll help us go with marketing material. And the marketing material, by the way, is something that they will help us produce. So they will provide some of that information, and we won't have to spend any money for it. And it will be much more directed to Long Meadow residents, and we will be able to get that out. Mass Save, periodically, in your utility bill, you'll find something from Eversource that says, have you thought of an energy audit? And people don't, they throw them out. They don't do anything with them. So we have a very poor uptake and participation in this town for doing the work to reduce our energy consumption. So I think that's a strong advantage for us to work with Homeworks, and they have a track record. And one of the other things that I really appreciate that Homeworks will do is provide a feedback loop so we know how we're doing, what's happening, who's getting, how many energy audits have happened, how we're doing in terms of reducing our overall energy consumption, what does that translate in terms of emissions and how we're reducing that. There's no part of Mass Save that you can reach that does that type of work for us. So this is really helping the town market better, be much more efficient, and actually get the information in a way that will also allow us perhaps to seek other opportunities for grants and work with climate change. Does that answer your question, Mark?
I guess so, Andrea. I appreciate that. I'm still, I've got some more questions. Maybe I'll wait and ask Steve those other questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Andrea, I appreciate you putting this together. Obviously, we met for about an hour at length going over this proposal. I think it's a good one, but I did have a couple of questions maybe Stephen could answer. Are there other towns that have entered in a similar type of agreement that you could speak of, or at least mention the name of the towns?
Hey, yeah, thank you for having me. So absolutely happy to get into that. We work with 8 municipalities currently. I can actually give you the list if you guys would like. So that's Beverly Salem, Gloucester, Lexington, Tingsboro, Canton, and then we're about to sign up with Malden and Melrose, but it's hasn't been signed yet.
How long have you been with those municipalities?
So so it's Lexington is about 3 years. A lot of the other ones, Tingsboro is about 2 years, and then a lot of the other ones have come in the last year or so, give or take.
And how many audits have you completed through the partnerships?
So we do about over 30,000 a year, but through the partnerships, the goals to like give you a kind of an isolated example, Beverly Salem has a goal of 2,000 this year. Bigger cities, of course, but and then Springfield has similar goals that we're trying to pursue there.
Mark?
Stephen, what do you get through this partnership that you can't do without this? I mean, like I said, I get email, I get letters all the time, and Andre, I understand and I appreciate your issues of dealing directly with Mass Save, but I actually called one of the companies on one of the letters I got. They called me back in like 24 hours. Somebody was out there 2 days later, and the energy audit was completed with a bunch of really good recommendations. And so, Steve, I guess my question for you is, why can't you be doing that on your own? And I must say that one of my concerns is, does the town end up with some liability if somebody does an energy audit with Homeworks and there's a problem with it, or they don't get what they like, or there's an issue? Are we putting the town in a potential issue where I think that 99% of this can be potentially done independently, including the marketing, the putting up a booth at the October fall festival and all that kind of stuff. So Steve, what do you get from your relationship with the town that you can't do alone?
Right. So to get to your points, I think that for us, it just, the track record has been that the concerted effort kind of does help just boost participation. People kind of become more aware of it. There's kind of a snowball effect from the promoting the campaign and getting out in the community and like regularly promoting it. We also have built into our budget for Mass Save is marketing money that wouldn't necessarily go to the exact things that we would be doing in this campaign. So there are mailers and things out there, but we would be doing a little more of a focused tailored approach to help help out the committee however we can. And from a liability perspective, I think we guarantee all of our work. So if there are ever any issues, we always fix them out of pocket to ourselves.
Thank you.
I'll just tell you both on the last comment Mark just made. I got solar panels installed through a town affiliated program and have had an awful experience. And it does make me worry about the private-public partnerships, because to me, it reflects very poorly on the company, and I feel like the town got bamboozled a little bit. And so I'm not casting aspersions on Homeworks, but I want to do my homework, I will say. Wait, that was not a pun, but I want to look into this.
I mean, in general, I think we need to, this is the cheapest thing the town can do to encourage people to do home energy audits. And frankly, like I said, people ought to be doing it anyway. It's free. Somebody comes in and you're not obligated to do, they can say you need new windows and you need new insulation, and you can say, thank you, I'm not doing any of it, and you're done. The audit's done. But at least you understand what people are saying. So I think it's a good thing to do. You know, I just think that, I'm concerned that this symbiotic relationship needs to have something that protects the town. I don't even know that we need to get something out of it as the town. We just need to protect the town from it. And that's why I asked, what did the town get? More importantly, is why Homeworks is looking to coordinate with the town of Longmeadow for things that they can't do on their own. And, you know, and I think maybe, Josh, you're right. The example that we use, Solarized Longmeadow, is probably not a bad example of how we've used the name of the town of Longmeadow to help promote, you know, putting solar panels in. And I know a lot of people put solar panels on as a result of that. And not, your experience notwithstanding,
I'm the only
it's
one.
probably a good idea.
Right.
So-
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean,
Project within.
there's nothing stopping anyone from using another audit company once we have this agreement, so,
Right.
yeah. Thank you very much for coming in. I think this is, it's intriguing and something to chew on. And we'll be able to address it again October 3rd before Longmeadow Days. Oh, Dan, go.
Yeah, just one other quick comment, or a question rather. So, are you working with other municipalities where you have something in your agreement that states if X amount of houses, you reach 500 or 1,000 houses, that Homeworks would do something for the town or municipality in terms of an energy audit, or provide some, I'm not suggesting a kickback, but something that the town could actually benefit from on top of all of the audits, of course?
Right, so the 2 points there, like, just to cover my bases, that we only do residential work, just to make sure that I've made that clear. In some arrangements, we have done donations with groups we work with, so we've done school fundraisers, donations to environmental groups, and we have, it's not an enormous budget, but we have worked things like that into the past, and flexible on kind of how that's broken up, like you were describing, on different tiers.
Thank you.
So, Josh, moving forward, you're looking to take this back up on October 3rd meeting? Is that what you're?
Yeah,
Okay,
I think ideally, we'd have to get a draft of the MOU.
I was going to say that, and I think if the MOU is going to be between the town of Longmeadow and Homeworks, and so I think, Lynn, that falls to your department and our legal department to make sure, I assume, to make sure that this does everything. I'm not looking for a ironclad contract, but I think, we ought to be having our legal team look at this
No,
prior to
and
that.
looking at the draft MOU, it's the opposite of an ironclad contract. Anyone can cancel at any time. It's kind of nice. I don't see many of those. But yeah, so we should get that MOU. No guarantees. I know you've have a booth and you want to get out there at the Longmeadow Days, but no guarantees it can all get done. But the faster you get an MOU out for review, the better chance you give yourself.
Well, and frankly, whether we have an MOU at the time or not, I think they can look at Longmeadow at the October Fall Festival, or whatever we're calling it, Fall Festival, now, as a means of promoting this to the residents of town. I think it's the right thing to do.
I think the proposed sign says Energy and Sustainability Committee and Homeworks, which would be the issue, but yeah. All right. Anything else? All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Yeah.
You as well.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you all.
Right.
Thank you. Have a great night. Next up, we have a one-day liquor license application for One Way Brewing. I'm full of them today.
I'll make a motion that we approve the one-day liquor license for One Way Brewing on, it's October 8th and 9th, and it says the Longmeadow Green, but it's actually not. It's the area in front of the community house, it's my understanding, or next to the community house. So, based on what we saw with the police recommendation, and we just go for it.
Second?
Yeah, second grade. My other question, do we need to do anything, and this is for Lynn and Mike, do we need to do anything for Fletcher's to be there?
He would be permitted through the health department, I believe, so I don't think we have to do anything. That would just go through the normal permits as if you were using the town green. This is only coming before you because it's a liquor license, unless you have some other information.
No, but
This-
that raises a good question, because
You know why
it's-
I'm asking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's not the green, which is why he's allowed to do a one-day liquor license. So it's like, it would be a structure on Treebelt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we might, this is separate from this, because we
Oh, I see
have,
what you're saying.
we're showing the
Right.
fence and the one-way tent, which
Yeah.
is fine. But we should get Fletcher's
And-
Fletcher's is the new barbecue place going into Rinaldi's. Old Rinaldi's.
Oh.
All right.
And get them to do what?
I think we have to give them permission to put the other tent on there and the smoker trailer, because it's also town property.
It's probably.
Right, but that has
both.
nothing to do with this liquor license.
No, I was just
Liquor
asking.
license probably needs to do one too.
That's a good point.
New-
Objects on the
new
tree
one,
belt,
what?
special requests.
Objects on the tree belt, because this is not part of the town green. And you have another select board policy about placing objects on the tree
Oh,
belt.
okay.
You have a lot of policies.
Yeah, unfortunately for everyone, I just been digging into this, but I want to do it right. So
Yeah.
anyway, all right, so any further discussion on the one-day liquor license? Okay, all those in favor? All right. Thank you very much. We look forward to having you there. And I would talk to the town manager's office on if anything else is required for the structures. Sorry? Oh, yeah, obviously, yes.
Can we take the?
We can't tonight.
Yeah.
Is this something that has to come before the select board again? So would we be looking at October 3rd? Is this like a formality, or is this something where, like,
I think we
things
have
are in
to,
limbo?
Yes, just, if you want to give me 1 second, I'm going to pull the policy up, and normally it would come in front of the select board. It can't tonight because it's not on the agenda, but I'm wondering if perhaps they could ask questions tonight that, knowing you have this plan here,
right.
and then next meeting you could vote on it.
That's great. Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, so are the circles, are those tables inside the fence?
Exactly.
Okay, so you have an outside fence, one entrance off the driveway, and then two, like the pop-up tents for food and for beer service.
Correct.
There, okay.
The only question I have is this tree belt extending beyond the community house property to where it's part, I mean, tree belt is all town right-of-way, I understand that, but.
So we've talked to the adjacent property owner
Yeah.
and let him know that that was our plan. And actually, Earl did, and we've got permission to be there, so he's okay with it.
Can I just ask that you submit that permission as part of your plan so that we're covered?
You see that being an issue? What's that? You see that being an issue? No.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I think it's fine, I just don't want to run into
Valid question.
issues with that. But
Go.
That, as long as we're talking about the tree belt and not on the other side of the sidewalk on Mr. Porter's private land, that's all. But he said fine, he's more than happy with
Well, other side of the land, we couldn't give a permit for anyway, it's just on
Right.
the treatment side.
it. That's the whole point.
What is it? What's
Mike's bringing the policy up now, but it actually, it's page 10. It does allow you to give consent of the select board or the town manager.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
The last paragraph.
Well, given what we see here, I'm happy to delegate it to the town manager to finish it up. Okay,
Yeah,
all right, so talk to Lynn and Mike.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Good luck.
Thank
And
you.
I live around the corner, so I'm looking forward to the barbecue restaurant.
Right on.
Yeah. It's looking good there.
I think the town's in for a treat on the 8th and 9th when they try the barbecue. I was lucky enough to try it
Excellent.
last week.
Yeah,
It was fantastic, so.
I feel an obligation to reiterate that, this is one of the few times we've served liquor, what I'll call in an open area like this, and we're gonna have police there, and we're gonna make sure that we're maintaining the control of the liquor in the system, so please
I
be
will
aware of
get
that.
work. This is our business, we take our business very serious, so.
I hear you, but
It's in our best interest to make sure that it goes on.
we anticipate a lot of people under the age of 21 being at this fall festival, and so we want to make sure that it's just appropriate, that's
Oh,
all.
and I should note, Tom wanted me to, Tom was opposed to this. I just wanted to, he called me today, asked me to say it at the meeting, just for the record. Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, one-day liquor license application for the St. Mary's Ladies Guild for an event on September 29th at St. Mary's Parish Center.
I'll move we approve the one-day liquor license for St. Mary's Ladies Guild for September 29th.
Second?
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor? And then we move on to Center School PTO Halloween Hustle 5K street closure on October 29th, 2022 from 7 to 11 a.m.
Yeah, I'll move we approve the Center School Halloween Hustle street closure as requested for October 29th.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
I'll thank Katie Wortman for getting it in early this year. Next up, we have block party applications. We have 2 for Greenacre, one between Winona and Hawthorne on October 9th from 1 to 8 p.m., and another to close all of Greenacre on October 31st from 5 to 9 p.m.
I'm going to do these separately, Josh, but I move we approve the road closure at Greenacre on October 9th for block party.
Second?
I'll just note that there is a note on here, it's from 1 to 8, and it says that the total duration of the party may not exceed 6 hours, which I think was one of our policies. So it's currently for 7 hours. Let me see.
I can coordinate with the applicant.
Yeah,
if you'd
either
like
2 to 8 or 1 to 7.
Yep, just to get a time, either 1 to
Okay.
1 to 7 or 2 to 8.
All right, so with that, any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
No, I'll make a motion, we approve the road closure of Greenacre for Halloween Eve, that's October 31st.
Second.
So, have they generally closed the entire
Every
street?
year, every year,
Okay.
except for the pandemic. We've been doing this for many, many years, yes.
See, last year we closed Ellington, and Farmington and Ellington are also crazy. We closed Ellington, and there was cars all the way. It was crazy on Laurel, people parking there. I have not been over to Greenacre because I can't leave my post. But does it cause traffic elsewhere, or is there any issue?
I have no idea.
All right, I guess we would hear. And if Chief Stocks has approved, then fine by me. Okay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Oops, what happened here?
Finally, I'm going to move that we approve the closure of Farmington, Ellington on October 10th, 2022, as requested in this petition. from 4 to 6 p.m.
Second.
All right, any further? All those in favor? Unanimous. And moving on to the fall town meeting draft warrant. Go ahead.
Okay, so attached to the agenda is the draft warrant. A couple changes, just first off. We've added on the first page a town meeting warrant guide. This came at a recommendation from a resident, and as we reviewed it, thought it made sense, so we've added this in here. It kind of just gives some explanation on some of the language that residents may see that are maybe not well-versed in some of the terminology that we use. So I think if this is well-received, we'll probably carry this forward for the annual town meeting. And then now getting into the meat of the articles. This is still a work in progress, so anything that you see highlighted is still being worked on. We have it right now structured that the first warrant article is the funding of the feasibility study for the middle school. We had talked to you about this a couple meetings ago, where the recommendation we're making is $800,000 from free cash and $800,000 short-term borrowing. This warrant article language has been vetted by bond counsel, by MSBA, and got the all clear from all of those groups.
How long do we anticipate the 800,000 short-term borrowing to be? I can't remember.
I would hope it's no more than 5 years.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to move on to number 2.
So, Lynn, I guess, obviously, we're not going to be able to approve the warrant tonight. But
No, the plan is October 3rd.
yeah, what kind of description are we going to put down there?
We're going to use a lot of what we prepared for a memo that was given to you earlier. Was that August? August meeting?
Yeah.
Does that need to be approved by the other players, or?
No.
Okay.
If you have any suggestions, we're open to them. So Article 2, this one I'd like to get your feedback on. We obviously, I think you all and certainly our office and the building department, we get a flurry of bylaw complaints, both general and zoning. And this was an idea that had been kicked around right at the beginning of the pandemic and did not move to the top of the list. But now with the complaints that just come in so frequently, and recognizing that we have one building inspector who's really, his job is state building code and building permits and inspections, this work takes an enormous amount of his day. And so the thought is to add up to 2 part-time code enforcement officers that would work staggered shifts. So we'd start with one that could work, odd hours, 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. or anything that we come up with that are outside of normal business hours. And that could be proactive in bylaw enforcement, education, and also certainly be tasked with following up on the complaints that are received. There was something else I was going, the other piece of this that we also would apply to this position would be if the water conservation bylaw passes, we would also have this person oversee that as well. If we're ever in a state of water conservation, that they would be managing, enforcement of that.
Would complaints come in to the officers, or would it continue to come into the building department?
Building department.
All right, but this would, in theory, save everyone a lot of time that they could devote to other
Yes.
things. This wouldn't be revenue neutral, but it theoretically could bring in some money for bylaw violations.
Yes.
Go ahead, Mark.
I support it. I think Paulie Lee needs to be doing building inspections and building codes and stuff like that, and Paul's only here 8 hours a day, and the flexibility to perhaps have somebody around in the evenings, if nothing else. I got a call from somebody today who was complaining they couldn't walk down a sidewalk because it's so overgrown, and I said, did you call Paul Healy? And they said no, but even if we called him, that means Paul's got to drop what he's doing, go out and drive and look at this side. It just makes tons of sense. I support it.
I think so, too. In my short time on the board, I've seen how much time you spend on this, town manager's office and the building department. There's got a lot going on, so I think this is, to ease any pressure, I think is a very good thing. And also to keep the bylaws enforced is also a good thing.
Lynn, can I suggest, because just as a comment that we might get, if our intention is, it says 2 part-time, we might want to put down non-benefited, if that's our intent, or less than 20 hours. That'll just answer, it, not in the article, but in the explanation, that'll just answer questions that I know we're going to get.
Sure, yeah.
I think that's me putting on my Marie Angelides hat.
Wonder how many people are going to be raising their hand for this type of job.
See.
I can think of a couple of people.
So
I might get out there.
Yeah. Article 3. This is one that's also been discussed for many years, actually. Not so much the text of this article, but the idea of it. It actually predates me. There was a study of the HR department that was done after the consolidation, and it recommended some additional staffing that was actually never implemented. And this has been a pain point of every town department, including the school department. The HR department has an enormous number of positions that they're responsible for and staff, and they are understaffed, and we're all feeling this every day. So this warrant article funds 6 months of a position. Ideally, we'd hire someone in January and then build it into the FY24 budget.
Excuse me.
The other remaining 30,000 of this would be to hire a consultant to come in and review and make improvements to our payroll system. We use Munis. There's pieces of it that were never implemented. We need someone to come in and do that for us. It's not something we can task a staff person to do unless they give up the rest of the work that they're working on at the same time. So that this would be to fund that.
Mark?
So Lynn, we're saying half of this would be for hiring somebody and half would be for this getting Munis to work better for payroll
Yes.
administration. I guess the question for the hiring is that all inclusive? I mean, we talk about, hiring somebody, but we've got benefits, we've got, and this is really putting my Marie Angelides hat on, we've got OPEB, we've got pension plan and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it seems to me.
Strictly salary, to get right to your point.
Right, and so we're adding in other costs that we're just going to absorb them somewhere else in the system?
Well, they're actually budgeted elsewhere. I mean, medical, health insurance, life insurance are budgeted in other line items.
But not for an additional person?
Well, there's one line item that covers all health insurance for all employees.
Right, but in theory, Paul, it's based on the number of employees we have. By adding an employee, those costs will go up. You're on Scannick Valley, it'll go up ever so slightly incrementally for healthcare and for, I know that Hampton County Retirement Board is going to charge us more money because there's another body on the, all I'm saying is, I think, I'm not arguing the need for this. I think we need to make sure that we're considering the all-in costs of this and not just saying it's just the salary.
I will say that we will not be charged for Hampton County in FY23.
Okay. Right.
Now, for the health insurance, there's so many pluses and minuses with people coming and going.
That's true.
I think we're going to have an ample amount. I mean, we turned back a hefty amount of money in FY22 in that line item, so I'm confident that there is going to be additional or excess money at the end of FY23 that will be absorbed.
Okay. Thank you.
Article 4, we're still working on the exact language for this, but this is the opioid settlement. Department of Revenue has not authorized a special revenue account for this yet. We do anticipate that will come in future fiscal years. But for this first time, we need to raise and appropriate the amount that we're anticipated to get for FY '22 and FY '23. So we should
So is this
have-
for 2 years?
Yes.
But this is just the, if you will, accepting the money and bringing it into our budget. This doesn't, it's just gonna go in the I thought it was earmarked based on the opioid settlement,
No,
right?
this actually, the money is going to come in as an estimated receipt, according to the Department of Revenue. This is authorizing the expenditure of that money.
To where?
So we
It would be a special account, a standalone account, that would have $132,000 in order to meet the obligations of the settlement.
Right, so I'm going to use as an example the cigarette settlement, because I remember when Beverly Hirschhorn was administering that. It was very specific, right, Paul? And we had money going in for that, and having, so this would be the same thing. It would be our health department would have to authorize it for things that are designated by the opioid settlement. In other words, this isn't going to pay for repaving roads.
Correct.
No.
This is going to pay for whatever the health
There's
department.
eligibility requirements in the settlement agreement, yes.
But I guess it says raise and appropriate this money, but in fact, I think of it as more as accepting this settlement and then appropriating the money as designated by our health department.
Yeah, that's what I'm having issue with. So you said we have to raise and appropriate the sum to be eligible for the settlement?
No. In order to have the expenditure, we need to authorize the expenditure. Otherwise, it will go directly into the general fund and stay there.
Which I can't, okay.
Okay, so this, we're going to take the money and we've already received some of it, I believe, but this authorizes the expenditure of those funds that are expected in FY 2023.
Our note above that we just added says raise and appropriate means funding through the property tax levy.
Property tax levy is actually a broad term, which also means estimated receipts and state aid.
Okay.
So, I mean, again, that's just how it's done through the Department of Revenue. But when you do say raise and appropriate, it's not directly out of taxation. It's coming out of the funds that come into the general fund of the town, like I said, which include property taxes, state aid, your Chapter 70 money, your lottery money, and then also those local receipts.
So anyone who
that
reads
come
that
in.
note that we just added is going to say, why are we?
You know what, I actually just highlighted that when I saw that and read it, that it probably needs to be worked on.
Okay.
And even with the, I think with the next one, even with the the Community Preservation Act, says raise and appropriate, but it's,
It's not quite the same.
you know.
It's from that fund.
That's
Okay.
why it's just a draft right now.
Well, that's why I think in Article 4, it seemed to me that we want to put into this somewhere to designate this as required by the settlement.
Yeah.
That expenditure will be designated as required by the settlement, because it makes it sound like we're raising it and spending it, when in fact.
Yeah, and I think you wanted to have a specific department that was going to be in
Yes.
charge of
Well,
it. Right.
Yep.
Well, I think that's how we're going to do it anyway, isn't it?
I think there's multiple departments that have access to it. Doesn't the police department have access to it along
I
with?
think they could, depending, according to eligibility, they could. I mean, you can buy Narcan with it.
Right.
We haven't worked on the explanation.
But it ought to somehow say, in
Yeah.
accordance with the
Sure.
Yep.
monies needs to go out in accordance with the settlement constraints.
Would it be helpful to list out a couple of examples?
Yes.
I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. As the fourth smartest guy in the select board, I got confused by it, so.
Some of this comes in quickly, and we just throw it on here so we don't lose it, and we highlight it so we make sure we go back and refine it, and that's, you're getting a very rough draft.
Got it.
But this feedback helps us as we go back and clean it up, too.
I mean, the article, Article 5, I think we're done with 4, but Article 5, we do that generally at the annual town meeting.
We did it at the annual town meeting last year, I think, or 2 years, only because of COVID and the numbers were
Oh,
not
okay.
known. Historically, it's been done at the fall town meeting.
Okay, but I didn't see this in the explanation, but people need to understand, this is simply taking the money that we've already raised and putting it into the buckets that are based on the buckets.
Right, there's a requirement that
Requirements,
so
right.
much of that money goes into these
Different-
three special buckets.
And I think if we explain it, that all we're doing is taking the money and putting it in the buckets as required by the community preservation law, that should go pretty smoothly.
I think this is the same explanation we've had before. Right?
It's very similar,
Pretty
yes.
smoothly, yeah.
There might be a couple words that have changed, but that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, but the council, or the board that governs it, the state code.
Number 6 is the reval. Paul, do you want to?
Yeah, number 6, I don't know, for those, maybe Mark, you might recall, there used to be a triennial revaluation.
Yeah, we just did this a couple of...
No, well, we did it 5 years ago now.
Okay, yeah,
So,
right.
and the Department of Revenue changed that to a 5-year reval. That 5-year reval is due in FY '24, not '23. But this will give us ample time to hire a consultant to do the work so that we are prepared when FY '24 starts, 9 months from now, that we'll have everything lined up and won't be, running around with our heads cut off to get the tax rate set.
So this is commercial as well, right?
This is both, yes.
And Mark, your issue with the commercial is that there's no sales. so
That has nothing, we
No, I
still
know,
got to do it, right.
I'm just remembering, yeah.
Right,
but
right, correct, but
That's the issue. So we reval, but it may not be accurate by,
we
There's
still
no
do it.
comps.
I mean,
Yeah.
the issue for me, Paul, on this isn't the measure and list that we used to
The
call it.
measuring list is a 9-year requirement that
Okay.
we're just completing,
Right,
which is
okay.
also due in FY '24, ironically.
Okay, that's why, okay, thank you.
They just happen to fall in the same year this time around.
Eh, eh,
And that money's already appropriated for the measuring list.
And transfer from available funds in the treasury is free cash.
Correct.
My reading, okay.
Seven is the DPW legal fees. Received an update from the attorney handling this matter, and this amount should get us through the end of June.
do we have any idea what this is going to be? Not here nor there, but if this goes to trial?
When I had gotten an update last year, the estimate was 450 to 500 to get us to that point. And
We're in the
with
wrong
this, we'll
business.
be at 425.
You're in this business, what do you mean?
Well, I'm not in this business.
A lot closer than I am. I support it. I mean, I think
Yeah,
we need to
Okay.
do this.
Article 8 is the legal fees for the natural gas work. This 130 was based on the budget and what we had remaining. We did get an update today about the invoiced legal expenses, which were $19,000. So that'll come off of the 88. So I'm just gonna have to take another look at this to see if I need to bump that number up. And if so, then we're gonna have to look at the rest of,
Well, why would you need to bump this number up?
because we were looking at the all-in for
I thought his all-in was
180.
208.
Oh, 208.
It's
208, but that was up to now.
88 gets us through May. And then from June until through 24 is,
Well, we only have 69 left. We don't have 88
120.
left. We only have 69 left, 88
Right.
minus 19.
that's what yes.
So we have 69 left, plus some amount needs to make 208. And so the answer is it's really 140.
Right, so I need to
Not
just go back
130.
and look at this. I haven't had time to do that since he called and.
Yeah,
gave
the
us
budget,
update.
I thought 230, well, I guess we didn't, oh, that was the, because we didn't have an updated legal bill, never mind.
Right,
That-
and so
that's
we
what
got
I forgot,
that
yeah.
by phone today.
Okay.
And I need to refine this number a little bit, which will likely have a trickle-down effect in some of the other warrant articles.
Now, I wonder, just in the beginning of the description, I know continue to review is very, are we saying that because we want it to be very broad in case something else comes up?
This is a copy and paste from the description that was used before.
Oh, yeah, I think, so we can move it up to have it more current. I think.
Yeah, we can do that. If anybody wants to take a crack at it, feel free. I would welcome that.
Okay, I could take a crack at that.
Well, how much prior year bills do we still have left?
Right now, there's $4,100 that we need.
And unless something else comes in between now and the warrant, there's 4,100. It's not like you guys are still looking.
No, we're not still
Right,
looking,
so-
but if a department all of a sudden sends something with a 22, experience date or
Right.
anything, it will, obviously have an impact here if they haven't encumbered the money.
Well, You're not going to get it till June or May if they don't have it.
Well, if it takes that long, yes, that's the way it's going to be.
Doing my best.
Oh, 10. All right, number 10. So in conversations with the DPWs, now that, we have a new leadership team and they're really taking a look at projects, one thing that has been sticking out to them a lot is their current budget for FY '23 does not have enough engineering development funds in it. So this money would allow them to get some of these projects essentially either shovel-ready or grant-eligible. So what is happening a lot is grant opportunities come up and we don't have the design documents ready to go to submit the grant and then be eligible for the money to actually implement. A lot of the grant opportunities are implementation grants, not design and development grants. So if we upfront the money for this design and development, it makes us much more ready to apply for all of these opportunities. And also, if we don't have grant opportunities for it, it makes our capital planning process that much better. We have more stuff we can submit, we have harder numbers, and so this money allows them that flexibility.
So this is to kind of make Sean's trying to come up with a plan.
Yes.
To look ahead, and this is to how to implement it.
Yes.
Okay.
And what I do anticipate you'll see, hopefully, is as we start the FY '24 budget process, the DPW's budget will start to be more reflective of these types of expenditures.
Is there any chance of getting examples of what those projects are, whether they're road repaving or, major building, because it's just seems kind of nebulous to say we're going to spend $100,000 to do engineering. If we could at least say we're looking at, road repaving or, it's just
Yep.
those categories.
Yep, I can get those.
Thank you.
Article 11, very similar idea. The hazard tree mitigation assessment is just about wrapped up. This was a grant that we had received through Department of Conservation, I think it was. Corinne had worked with DPW on this and had been successful. Davy Tree has been in town. You might have seen them for the past few weeks surveying. They're going to come back at us with a big list of prioritized trees that need to be addressed. This money would fund some of that work, but also deal with the 80 stumps from previously removed trees that we have not been able to tackle, both because of funding and the contract exhaust before we can get to all of this work.
Is all this contracted out? All the tree removal on the stump?
The tree removal, yes. The stumps are as well, I think. I don't believe.
We have a stump grinder, but we don't have enough people to run it.
Yeah.
We own a stump, I remember buying it from Capital.
It's
But we
more.
don't have anybody to run it.
It's more cost effective for us to contract it out.
Okay. Do we have any idea how many trees are going to be considered hazardous?
We will know, if not by October 3rd, definitely by the 25th. Davey
Okay.
was wrapping up. It shouldn't take them too long to get us that full report. So we do anticipate having that by town meeting.
So we'll have an idea of if this should cover it, or get close to covering how many trees we need to take down?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's more than we've done, so it's a
Yeah.
great start.
And this is such an important thing to do.
Yes. So Article 12, the glass case, I am awaiting more information on this because I do anticipate this one having a lot of questions.
How many times have we voted on this?
There was a capital article,
Which was
FY
insufficient.
'22. We put for $75,000. We put the project out to bid and it came in at $275,000.
Wow.
So it's to remove and replace with a different material. We've had safety issues
Oh.
with the glass that's there. A student was injured. And this is something we need to address.
It got approved last time, right? But
It
we
did.
just didn't have
We don't have
we didn't have
enough
the money.
Yeah.
Lynn, did you look into this one after we met?
That's what I'm inquiring on.
I mean, and this has nothing to do with whether I approve it or not, but just having been in the glass industry for 35 years, I'd love to know whether we plan on using tempered glass or laminated glass. It's got to be one of the two to make it safety glass, and there's a huge difference in cost of those. And you know, if they're recommending laminated glass, I'd come back and say, maybe we ought to consider tempered. Or, pardon the expression, but polycarbonate, piece of polycarbonate, that's a, 1/50th even that cost. But I understand that, I mean, you walk along there, big, huge pieces of glass, if somebody hits it, they're gonna break into big fragments and hurt somebody, but
Plastic can be scratched though, right? The kids could take.
you know how
key
many
to it.
times you can replace the plastic for the
Oh,
cost
it's
of
true.
glass?
50 times apparently.
That's right. Just saying, Josh.
Yeah, that's
I mean, $200,000 is.
a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. You know, especially all these people who are putting up polycarbonate that, during COVID now have all this polycarbonate capacity and are looking for something to do with it. I mean, you could get hard-coated polycarbonate too, which you pay a little bit more for, and then it doesn't scratch. But
Gotcha.
again, I just hate to think, and I'm talking too technical here for the select board, but, for my role on the select board, but $200,000 is a lot of money to replace glass in cases. An awful lot of money.
I'll have more info October 3rd. It'll be firmed up by then.
Thanks.
Article 13 is a standard one. This is one of the amounts that may change depending on how some of the other articles shake out, because it obviously would reduce the amount of free cash we have to move in to this stabilization fund.
Yeah, I'll be right up front. It may not change, it may be eliminated completely, because the hits on the free cash that are presented here with the 4,100 for the bill of prior year would reduce your free cash to 492,000, which is less than what the select board policy says currently. So that being, this is zero. So, you may want to discuss that. Article 14 is, supplementing some OPEB money. So, you may want to change some of this. I don't know if you want money going to OPEB or a stabilization fund, but, the way this stands right now, there's not enough money to fund this and maintain your policy.
Even better reason not to spend $200,000 of free cash on glass cases, if we can do it for less money. But I understand the need to provide safety in those glass cases.
So this is a work in progress. We'll have more info at the next meeting. And then the same goes with Article 14. All right. Article 15, this is I think you had some information on this previously, but I'll go into detail now. The fire rescue truck suffered a failure this summer. This is the truck they use for brush fires. The truck itself is in really good shape. It's the body and the mechanisms that really need to be swapped out. So this proposal here actually is a fraction of what the replacement of the truck cost would be. It's about half. And they've spec'd this out. They think it's gonna come in a little below 60, but 60 will absolutely do it. And this will give them the exact truck that they need to use as the pumper truck. Yep, sorry, did you have a question, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, with the dollars being uncertain, when we had capital planning, we always had something that said, any unexpended funds get returned. How do we do that with transfers from free cash? Well, this is from the fire truck
I guess
fund,
we could add that same statement, that any unused funds will be
returned to the fire.
Returned to the fire truck replacement fund.
Okay, yeah, because this is clearly the less expensive alternative to buying a brand-new piece of equipment,
Yeah.
so.
And there's also a fraction of a wait time. That they have the equipment, it's kind of a plug and play, not the 36-month wait we're hearing right now for ambulances or fire apparatus. Okay. Article 16. Along the same lines as the rest of the DPW projects, they are taking a look at everything that they have going on there, and certainly with the stuff that has gone on this summer with water, and then the electrical failure we had at the Flores Glen pump station this summer, the DPW wants to be better situated to not have these types of things happen again. So they want to get some planning going, and this will fund some planning design for a generator at that pump station, as well as look at comprehensive long-term capital plan for water, which could also potentially look at increased water storage capacity for the water tower area.
Paul, what would this leave in the water retained earnings?
We're anticipating water retained earnings to be certified at $802,000. So the combination of this one and the next one is going to bring you below your kind of target policy of $500,000, just FYI.
But we're still potentially may have money at the end of this year to put back into.
Right, potentially you'll have excess money at the end of this year, but I'm just saying that it does draw it down to like 452.
So
with the approval of those two articles.
I want to talk for a second about Article 17 more than 16. Why wouldn't, because 16 is for engineering design, but 17 is hydrants and valve replacements. Why isn't that in our water department budget for?
It is. It's not enough.
So why don't we boost it in next year's budget?
We will.
But we need it between now and then?
So.
Because I just can't imagine we're going to spend this extra $150,000 between now and the annual town meeting. And I'd rather keep that money as a safety net in the water retained earnings fund, and then next year say, because we can schedule the water department budget to pull it out then and put it in the budget for fiscal year '24.
If it goes in the FY24 budget, it wouldn't be available till July.
Right.
It's just FYI, but it certainly, we're just trying to get some more work done between now and next June 30th.
I mean, it's retained earnings, it's water retained earnings money, so it's not like we're taxing anybody or taking out,
Right.
It can only be used for the water department, so I get it. I just can't imagine how we're gonna spend $150,000 between now and July on hydrants and valves.
What could we do? We could do $100,000 and keep us at our goal.
Maybe.
And that does seem like a lot of work. I remember my street got voted on for hydrant replacements years ago. Hasn't happened yet.
Well, Josh, just to go back, years ago, we were unable to repair hydrants ourselves. And I don't know how long you lived in town, but you used to drive around town, Dan, you remember this, and there were bags over like every fourth fire hydrant in town, because they weren't functional, and we just couldn't do it ourselves. And one of the deals with us getting remote water meter readers is that we could repurpose those employees to renovate fire hydrants. And my understanding is we did that at one point. And in fact, for a while, I think, Paul, we were taking in fire hydrants from other towns and kind of repurposing them as a fee-for-service basis. So there's a degree of hydrants you can rebuild. And then there's some point where the fire hydrants just are too old, and I assume you got to replace them, which is what we're doing here. But so fire hydrants have they're not the simple pieces of equipment people think they are. They're extremely complicated, because if you don't do them right,
A lot of pressure.
no, the ground underneath is just washed away. Because if water leaks out of a fire hydrant, it doesn't leak up, it leaks down and undermines the water, the roadway. So I'm not opposed to doing this, but $50,000 is probably, I don't know, 5 or 8?
It's 10.
It's 10?
There's
Yeah.
14,000 in the budget, which will cover almost 3. There's, I'm sorry, 3. There's 12 out of service right now.
Yeah. I mean, do we have the money to be digging up and replacing the hydrants, even if we had the hydrants?
Sorry, say that again?
If we had 20 brand-new hydrants to put in, do we have the expense money to go out there and dig up those hydrants and take out the old ones and put in new ones? I mean, and I assume the ones we take out, some number of them will rebuild.
I don't think we would be able to do the quantity that he's looking for. I mean, I imagine there's some money to do.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So if we can't do them all, why buy them all now? Let's hold some money.
But
Josh
this isn't buying, this is installing it too,
Yeah,
is it not?
we're not doing this in-house. We don't have enough staff to do
This is
that.
purchase and install.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I guess we've got to do it.
Yeah, I think both of these are really important.
Incredibly important.
Yeah. Get them next year then.
So Article 18, I will have more information at the next meeting as well on this one. This is the Bay Path Pump Station. And this is a town infrastructure piece. So it is on us. And I'll make sure the explanation is cleaned up, because I could see people asking why Bay Path isn't paying for it. And yeah, this is likely something that should have been on a capital plan at one point, but for whatever reason was not last year.
So with these, the next three, we would still be above 500,000 in the
Yeah, we
sewer.
would, again, with these three, it would bring us down to 659. Then you have the 100,000 that you also voted earlier, so you'd be at 559. And again, that's pending that, I mean, again, we're waiting certification from the Department of Revenue. The information's been sent to them, but these are the estimates that we have, that 9 times out of 10 are pretty close.
Okay.
So we need to add somewhere in here 18, 19, 20, and somewhere there's a 21 is transfer from retained earnings.
Yeah, we're gonna need to add that one.
For supplementing the budget.
You're right, probably
Yeah.
the new 21, just to
Yeah.
keep them all together.
Yeah. Okay. 21 is the, what, did you want me to do anything on 19 or 20? Or are you pretty clear on those?
Well, 19 we better do, because if we don't do that, we got potentially very
Yes.
serious problems. So I don't know
Yeah.
about,
That's what we looked at, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Same with 20.
I don't know what 20 means, but it sounds important as well.
Okay.
Lynn,
Yep.
for 20, in the explanation, it might be useful to put down how frequently we do that.
Yep.
If it's triannual or every 20 years or every 6 months, whatever it is. But I think it's
Yep.
more like every 10 years we do this.
So Article 21, which will change to be, change to be 22. This is the outdoor water use bylaw. It's a separate document. We have not inserted it into this warrant yet because when we did that, we lost the track changes so that you couldn't see what was being proposed to change.
Is that, so the one that is actually attached to the agenda has
Comments.
the comments and it, you can't see the red lines, right?
Yeah, I don't think it came through as well as.
It never does
Because it's
on
Google
the
Docs.
agenda, yeah.
and So it didn't,
But somehow I had a Word version of it.
I
that
sent you
she-
Mike
guys a
sent
word.
Oh,
that.
right, that-
Yeah.
and that had all the change.
Yep.
But it doesn't have the comments.
right,
Yeah, it-
yes.
I tried a bunch of
Oh,
times
no,
to try to
I
think.
I bet.
And I even converted it to Word and did it, but, you know, it is what it is.
And it seemed to me that this covered all the topics we talked about the last time.
Now, and one of my questions was, that I think was covered by Corinne's comments, is, where is it? The state of drought?
Yes, and this versus the state of conservation versus state of emergency,
So,
section 5 or 6, is that where you're,
yeah, so we can declare state of water supply conservation. And then, but a state of water supply emergency, DEP declares, but upon our petition, is that right? That's what,
yes. Yes, unless DEP were in this catastrophic state and they declare a statewide emergency, then we wouldn't have to petition them.
and if they declare a statewide emergency, does the state then enact restrictions rather than us?
That's a good question. I don't,
That was the whole point, that even when they
Don't
did, they
think
were
so.
unenforceable
Right.
in Long Meadow without us adopting them.
right.
I thought there was something beyond that, though.
There is the emergency. We could have asked for an emergency if we really were in an emergency situation, but I don't
we
believe
still
there was
have to
still
ask.
any fining.
Okay. Yeah, so DEP may authorize water commissioners to have powers they may not normally have under state law, such as the ability to take land under eminent domain. I mean, it doesn't help us, but. Yeah, this covered what I had brought up before and some of the concerns I got from town residents.
And it focuses on an emergency, whether it's drought or equipment related, which is what we
Yeah.
wanted to have added, and it doesn't deal with any of the other things that were in last year's version. So
Right.
from my perspective, it gives us, if it passes, it'll give us the authority we need to start, should there be a repeat of this summer, next summer,
Right.
to restrict water usage.
For the enforcement agency, or I guess individuals that would help, if we go back to Article 2, do we need to change some sort of wording so that it applies to that person that we might?
Well, this would be a bylaw, so I think it would apply.
Okay.
I think I saw what you're referring to
Yeah.
earlier today when I was looking at it, where it says enforcing agents shall include uniformed officers, the building inspector / zoning enforcement officer, public health director, and members of the Department of Public Works. We could expand on the building inspector / code enforcement
Yeah,
officer.
I'm not a lawyer, I'm just trying to look at what we,
Yeah.
at Article 2 and how it might apply.
Yeah.
Oh, I see, I think, I thought you meant the other way around, yeah.
Yeah.
So under definition of section 4, you want to just modify that?
Yeah, maybe, yeah, to code enforcement or
Yeah.
whatever that person might be referred to as.
Yep.
Well, I suspect that won't be the last I hear of it, but I think that that is, I hope it's a good, acceptable version of this for the town. And I think it's really imperative that we do it.
And just to clarify, will the track changes be accounted for in the actual warrant, or just a clean overall version to show what's changed? And,
I think it has to be the final version.
yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and then the description you would put in how, at that point, we can say how it was changed from the previous version.
I don't believe we do an explanation for a bylaw, because we print the whole text of it.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Oh,
because it's not a current bylaw.
oh, that's true, yeah.
It's not
Okay.
like we're changing a law, Josh. We're
Yeah,
just, you know.
that's true. Yeah.
So the next ones are what you sent us, Lynn, the
Yep.
general code revisions.
Yep. So these are gonna be long.
So that's my question. The document you sent us was 208 pages.
It won't be that long. The longest one is 18 pages.
How long is a warrant gonna be?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. How are we gonna put this into a warrant?
We're just gonna put it,
We're gonna stack them all in there, so.
yeah.
And for a special town meeting, a fall town meeting, there's no requirement that we distribute the warrant in advance.
Right.
So we'll basically be handing this out to people as they come into the meeting, or it'll be posted in the reminder, or it'll be posted around town. But I think it's gonna be very difficult for people to get through this. I think there's gonna be a lot of accepted on faith.
Yeah.
I just think that's a problem in a town meeting.
Cliff notes.
Dan, I spent 2 hours today going through it with Lynn. There's no version of Cliff Notes, because I went through all 208 pages, and you know, I consider myself a little bit knowledgeable, and I think that there's still a bundle of questions that we went through, and I think, you know, I was pretty much satisfied with all of them, but the way they're written, they
Yeah, there'll definitely be
put
questions.
up a lot of questions.
There will be questions, and obviously with every town meeting, we do our best to get the warrant out, answer questions in advance. We do warrant info sessions. I do one at the adult center. There will be questions, and I think the bulk of the questions will come from people not realizing the language that we're proposing here is likely almost the same as, or the same as what the bylaws read as now. Because I don't think many people understand what the bylaws say. And this new format, obviously not the print version, but the E-code version is much easier to understand and read bylaws.
So to that end, Lynn, rather than, as we normally do with articles, have a post-article explanation, should we have a preamble to this saying that, you know, there's 208 page, whatever it is, you know, and our intent, the intent of this is to, you know, clean up references to obsolete state laws, that, you know, to make them internally consistent, you know, list the 4 or 5 controls we had. I think one of the things that you and I spoke about today that I think is important to talk about is, you know, some of these things imposed fines that state law didn't allow us to do and that weren't consistent. We've got to bring those all into alignment with state law, because I was reading this and saying, you know, is it changing fine levels? There's just a lot of stuff in here. 90% of it is, you know, just literally an editorial kind of change. But I think if we can have a preface to this thing, which I know is very unusual, but as people read through it, they need to understand that's what it's saying, because I assume we're going to do it as just put it down the new way and not even say, it's not going to be as a track change document.
Right.
So people aren't even going to know what's changed versus what hasn't changed in these articles, and that's in
We'll
these
have the
bylaws.
summary. So the plan is to have a summary document that outlines what's changing. I'm waiting for information from General Code that I'll have this week, so it'll give me a much better idea of what we can expect those things to look like. And it'll probably be a separate handout. I can't imagine we would insert a summary into the warrant, but I'll have a better idea before we meet next time.
You know, I hate to bring this up, but are these 2 articles or 3 articles worthy of having a special town meeting for?
A separate one, you mean?
A separate town meeting. I mean, we're talking about a lot of stuff that we're going through, and now Lynn, my take is that these articles are either going to take 30 seconds or 5 hours, and I have no idea where they're going to be in that continuum.
Well, I'd like to see how they will actually read in the warrant, because you're right, we don't know, but I'd like to see how it's actually presented in that 18 pages.
Mhm.
That's
I'll have
fine.
it this week.
I mean, either that or we need to be prepared with Rebecca Townsend to continue the town meeting to another. I really, it's a lot of stuff, and we've got people who we can all identify who are going to want to read through this stuff at town meeting. You know, and they aren't going to take I move we adopt Article 22 by acclamation or whatever, whatever it is.
They also may table it.
Well, and that would be the worst thing that we could do, Paul. I mean, because it gets tabled till we don't know when. I mean, I'm not suggesting we don't do it. I just, we just sat here with 21 articles at a fall town meeting. That's a ton of stuff. That and then we're going to put on top of that, a significant codification, editorial changes of we're not changing the structure, the intent, or the implication of any of our zoning bylaws, but the fact that it's coming out for vote, we can all name the people who are going to make it an issue.
You don't think they'll just trust us?
Yeah, I think you just answered the question. Anyway, consider it, that's all, or
Yeah.
be prepared, maybe not consider it, but be prepared for it. Very frankly, I think if it was a special town meeting, we'd get 50 people there,
I was going to say, if we can get a quorum.
Well, I think we'd get 50 people there, and the people who want to talk about it would talk about it, but the people who didn't want to wouldn't. We'd get the business done.
Why don't I see what it comes in like
Yeah,
this week?
right.
And
Fine,
then
I'm okay
I'll
with that.
also talk with Rebecca.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the presentation is going to be the key, but it may not matter. People may want to read it, may never go through. But, yeah.
Yep.
All right.
That's fine. You're right, it's in the presentation.
Yeah.
Because the worst thing we can do is present these things and somebody go in there and start nitpicking a bylaw, that's an existing
Well, yeah.
bylaw that we're really not changing, other than changing reference to Mass General Law 22 to Mass General Law 22B, and yet we're going to get a 2-hour debate about that bylaw.
Well,
And that's what we open ourselves to
But
when we do
Rebecca,
this.
but that's not that wouldn't be on the floor, so Rebecca could shut that down.
Yeah. It's not a vote on individual bylaws. It's a vote on the package.
She can use her inherent
Okay.
powers of office to,
Yeah, I'll talk with her this week.
yeah. I'm not It might not go smoothly.
No, I don't know. I mean, I'm surprised that it's take the whole package or don't take the whole package, but if we can pull that off, I guess that's the way to do it. But as you can see with your discussion with me today, Lynn, I had trouble with 10 or 12 of them out of 200.
We're one of the few towns that doesn't have E-code around,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
We gotta get with the times.
Yes.
And E-code is so much easier. It's
Yes.
unbelievable.
For staff, for residents.
Anyway.
Okay, I think the last article is a change to the charter about the housing authority. So this is an exact reason why we need E-code. It would have cleaned this up anyway, but we're cleaning it up now. Our bylaws, our charter was in conflict with state law. So this will realign it. And it's been holding up the work of the housing authority.
And Lynn, why is this one at the bottom after the codes?
It doesn't
Just-
have to be, we can move it up.
I mean, I
Might
don't
as well
have,
put it just before the E-code.
Okay.
so one of the ones we didn't talk about is what's Article 24, Home Rule Charter. It says amendments, but it's really modifications based on the Charter Review Committee, I assume, right?
No, this is the general code work.
Oh, okay. Those are all the general code. Okay, so we're not going to deal with that Charter
Oh, we have
Review
it.
Committee issues.
We have it coming up next. On the
Okay,
agenda if we
so,
wanna- if
but
we
it's
wanna
not,
put 'em
it's
on.
not going to be part of this. It's right now, it's not part of the warrant.
No, but it could be added if we want.
Okay.
That's why we're doing it tonight. All right, so that's it on the draft warrant. On to the Charter Review Committee outstanding recommendations. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate your input. All right, Mark, you want to go ahead on this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much more I can do. There was a Charter Review Committee did some work, and then there were some incomplete recommendations, and they were focused primarily around the capital planning and where it stood in the whole charter in terms of what section it should be in and that kind of thing. And so what I did is I put together the things that they had and tried to put them all together and then show through track changes, what the changes that they're proposing. I did also put down some comments that came around literally from a couple of years ago, where the select board had indicated that that's fine, that the Charter Review Committee recommended it, but we're not quite certain that that's where we want to go with these audits. And so, there are comments as well as potential changes in this. And the only question is do we want to discuss these? And do we want to move forward with them on behalf of the Charter Review Committee? Like I said earlier tonight, that the whole issue of capital planning is something we probably want to look at. And I frankly have no problem deferring this until the spring.
I was just about to say.
Especially since we're going through a major code revision. This would just complicate things desperately.
Given our conversation now, I was thinking the same thing, that we just don't know how the E-code will go. And given our conversation about the Permanent Building Committee, I think it could be good to dig into this all at the same time, if there needs to be any capital planning amendments anyway. So I'm happy to defer this.
Yeah, no, I agree.
That's fine. And I just want to point out here that the Charter Review Committee recommended changes to the Audit Committee's responsibilities, and the Audit Committee at the time issued some concerns. And the Charter Review Committee said, we still think you ought to do it, and therefore nothing was done.
I emailed Pete today to
Okay.
ask why.
Okay.
So that's another thing I wanted to hear more on.
I mean, that,
Did he strongly opposed, if I recall? Yeah.
yeah, whatever. I mean,
Okay, yeah.
there was also, as you'll see in here, some discussions about the process for reviewing the budget from the town manager and the select board and the finance committee, and what that timing is, because it had been problematic. This did have the potential for cleaning out a lot of those, I think, logistical issues between the finance committee and the town manager and the select board in clearing through a budget. So I thought it was, we ought to take a look at it at least.
Okay.
Josh, I'd like to see, I mean, I've looked at this 3 times now over the last 2 years or 3 years, but I think we ought to have other people just look at it perhaps and
Sure.
say, yes, we ought to do this, or no, we ought not to. But deferring it till the spring is fine.
Great. And finally, on correspondence, to thank Tim Casey for his work on the various boards, Historic District Commission, Historical Commission, Building and Demolition Committee. We received his resignation. We thank him for his work. And then I also noted, my eyes might have skipped over before, there's a East Long Meadow Planning Board notice on the Amazon warehouse notice to abutters. Did we receive that in our mail?
No, we got it from a resident who dropped it off, and
Okay.
we decided that it should go on your correspondence.
Okay. 'Cause I know we're not in a butter, but sometimes site plans, they always, when you apply for a site plan review, you have to give envelopes to send to abutters, and sometimes to budding municipalities, but I don't know in this circumstance if that would come in, but I guess not, so.
Yeah, we did not receive anything other than this hand delivery in the office.
Okay.
I mean, I hate to say this, but because the same thing came up in Enfield with the construction of Dartmoor apartments, and the issue in Enfield's another state as well as another municipality. What authority does the town of Longmeadow have with something that's going on in another community? And the answer was none. It was, we found out in Dartmoor, and clearly this, should an Amazon warehouse be approved in East Longmeadow, it would have something, it would change the traffic pattern in Longmeadow. But you're talking about traffic on state highways that, we can't tell what trucks can and can't come on state highway. We can't limit the number of vehicles on a state highway. And so I just feel badly that we're being asked, and I think we all got at least one of the same letters from somebody who says, select board, do something. And the answer is, there's not a whole lot we can do, and I think people need to understand that. I know, Leslin, you've got some magic act here.
I've had the same thoughts running through my head, too.
Yeah, I mentioned my resident comment, this is it's regulated, and that's what zoning's for, and when you can build as of right in a zone, it's very hard to do anything about that town-wise, and for the town next door, even harder.
Yeah, I mean, once before the LNG, I think they called it a truck pipeline going it through to East Longmeadow came forward, and our fire chief had the wherewithal and I think the authority to comment upon safety of those vehicles going through the town of Longmeadow, and I know he commented that to the planning board in East Longmeadow at the time. But I think this is a whole different ballgame, and we do have jake brake outlaws in town, and prohibitions in town, and things that we would plan on, I assume, enforcing. But I don't know how we can prevent a surrounding or a budding community from constructing something.
That's generally the way it is. All right, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Good night. Thank you, everyone. I did get my wish. It's an EV